Speaker of the National Assembly. On my right is the Deputy Speaker, Gladys Bose. We have Jeremiah Ndombi, the Deputy Clerk, sitting in for the Clerk, and I'll invite the members to introduce themselves.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
Kimani Shongo. Junet Mohammed.
Nelson Koech.
Masemeri, Teso South.
George Gitonga Mrugara Tharaka.
Owen Baya Kilifi North.
Robert Mbui Kadhiani.
Stephen Mule Matungulu.
Didoraso Saku.
Abdi Shurie.
Mishi Mboko Likoni.
Rehab Mukami Nyeri.
Caleb Amisi Saboti.
Engagement will be with you taking an oath before you answer any questions. We have the Holy Bible, the Holy Quran, and the Holy, is it called Gita? Yes, the Hindu Holy Book. Which Holy Book do you swear by?
I will use the Bible.
The Bible. Take it in your right hand and recite the oath.
I, James Opio Wandai, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee on the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you. You may sign on the oath. Thank you. You may also give the sergeant your original documents to enable the clerk cross-check with what we have on you. As we start, Honorable Wandai, we expect from you precise and concise responses to the questions put, no unnecessary stories, and if we go that way, we will move reasonably fast. Questions may be put to you that make you uncomfortable or not. Just take them in the stride and answer them, because there is no ill will from any member here. It's all in the course of duty. We'll start by inviting you, for the record, to tell the committee your name, your educational background, your work experience, and your key competences to make you suitable for the appointment to which you have been nominated.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker and members. I was born some 52 years ago in Siaya County. My early schooling started at Sikalame Primary School. That's a rural school in Ugunja sub-county, which I joined in 1979 and went ahead to do my KCPE exams in 1986. Thereafter, I proceeded to Sawagongo High School in the present-day Gemiala sub-county for my O-levels. And I was there until the year 1990, when I did my KCSE, upon which I proceeded to the University of Nairobi to pursue a Bachelor of Science degree in agriculture, majoring in agricultural economics, which I completed in the year 1996. Later on, I undertook a diploma course in business management at the Kenya Institute of Management. Thereafter, I also did an MBA at Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. I later on again enrolled for a Bachelor of Laws degree at Daystar University, which I completed last year, I think, yeah. Honorable Speaker, my professional background or job background, I basically worked in the private sector, in the corporate world, all the time before I joined Parliament. As a matter of fact, I joined the British American Tobacco Company in the year 1998 and worked for a whole 14 years before I resigned in early 2013 to join Parliament. During my stint at British American Tobacco, first I started as a fairly junior officer dealing with the extension services within the tobacco growing regions of Korea, Migori, Bungoma, Teso, Dhaka, finally Nairobi, and eventually Uganda. But I rose steadily through the ranks, Honorable Speaker, from an field extension officer to an area manager. Later on, I became the regional manager for Western Kenya, based in Malakisi, a place called Malakisi in Bungoma, between Bungoma and Teso, I think. It's in Bungoma, actually, yes. And specifically in Sirisia constituency. I stayed in Malakisi for 7 years as the regional manager for BAT, where I was basically undertaking the business work for the company in charge of managing the contract farming business. Later on, was promoted to handle the operations for the whole country, for growing operations for the whole country, based in Thika from the year 2007 all the way to 2011. And thereafter, I was seconded on an international assignment on a project internationally, but based between Nairobi and London. And finally, I went on international secondment in Kampala. I was posted in Kampala to manage leaf business sustainability for both Uganda and DRC. I was to be there for 2 years, but I cut short my tour of duty by a year to come back and run for elective positions as the MP for Ugunja, which I successfully did in 2013. But before I come to my role in Parliament, Honorable Speaker, quickly, during the time I was working in BAT, I was, of course, a business manager. Because up to the point I was leaving, I was now essentially a strategic business manager, dealing with strategic business issues and leading teams of diverse backgrounds. In my responsibilities, I was in charge of environment, health, and safety issues as the head of those departments. And therefore, I came into contact with matters energy fairly early in life. Fast forward, Honorable Speaker, when I joined Parliament in 2013, my first term at the 11th Parliament, I served in the committee, among others, the Committee of Environment and Natural Resources. In my second term, beginning the year 2017, I was privileged to be elected the chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee, a role I played for the entire term of that Parliament, serving with some distinguished members who are in this committee, including the Honorable Junaid Mohammed, who is now the leader of minority. Honorable Speaker, in my role as chairman of PAC, I interacted with accounting officers of all ministries, all state departments, and all constitutional commissions, but to narrow down to the Ministry of Energy, whose books of accounts I examined for the whole 5 years. Yeah, so that gave me an idea, really, of matters energy and petroleum. I remember dealing with the two accounting officers, one in charge of energy, one in charge of petroleum for the entire period. And fast forward again to my third term, the 13th Parliament. Again, when I came in, I was privileged to be elected the leader of minority, alongside my colleagues, Deputy Honorable Robert Mbui, the distinguished member for Kathiani, Honorable Junet Mohammed again, who was then my chief whip, among others. But I must also hasten to add that in this term of parliament, apart from being the leader of minority, I have also been a member of the Public Investment Committee, Energy and Commercial, that is ably chaired by the distinguished member for Pokot South, the Honorable David Kosing. That committee, as you know, Honorable Chair, deals with matters energy to a very large extent, yes, alongside other matters under the commercial ambit. So, Honorable Speaker, I come before you confident, truly confident, that with the nomination by His Excellency the President, for me to be the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum, I come with the competencies, the necessary competencies that are required to handle the docket. Yes, I'm extremely confident that this docket I can be able to manage, given my background, both academic and professional, and ultimately, again, parliamentary. Yeah.
That will
Thank
do.
you. Yeah.
That will do, nominee. For purposes of proceedings, all members will address you as nominee. No causing around, it's just a nominee. So nominee, I'll invite the deputy speaker to be the first to ask a question.
Honorable Wandai, my first question to you, my question is where you're coming from and where you're going. So where you're coming from, as leader of minority party in the National Assembly, it has been your duty to hold government to account. On many occasions, you opposed government proposals. What shift in ideology will allow you to satisfactorily serve as cabinet secretary in government, and how will you demonstrate your commitment to the bottom-up economic transformation agenda? My second question is about where you're going, something topical that Kenyans are asking. On the 14th of July, 2024, IPRA, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority, announced a marginal increase in fuel prices. However, once people made an analysis, it revealed a notable increase in the road maintenance levy from 8 shillings to 25 shillings per litre, despite the public rejected that increment. What are your thoughts about the surge in the road maintenance levy? Do you propose to address, how do you propose to address it? Should you be approved as Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Petroleum? Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, first and foremost, when I was sitting in the House, indeed I still sit in the House before I eventually resign if you agree to approve my nomination. Honorable Speaker, I was simply playing my role. And it must be understood clearly that under the Article 94, 95, and 96 of the Constitution, Parliament, regardless of which side you are sitting, has got a collective duty to oversight the executive, okay, to legislate and also to represent our electors. It only follows that I happen to have come from the party to which the president and his executive do not belong. And let me say this, Honorable Speaker, because there's a misnomer here. People tend to think that it follows, it goes without saying that the president and his team must come from the majority side. In America, for instance, you know very well, that despite President Joe Biden being a Democrat, the leader of majority in the House of Reps is a Republican. Okay? When you go to the Senate, it's the vice versa. But therefore, I was simply playing my role first and foremost as a member of Parliament under Article 95 of the Constitution. Okay? But above all, I was the leader of the minority, and therefore I was leading my troops in putting the government or the executive to check without any prejudice. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, there is no contradiction whatsoever in what I believed in then and what I believe in now. I simply believe that I've been called to perform a national duty. And as a patriotic Kenyan, I have responded positively to the call, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, I will be open to
Honorable
scrutiny.
Wandai, that's exactly what you wanted to hear, because the Kenyan public
Yes.
wanted to hear and have that assurance.
Thank you very much.
So I think you've explained it well.
Thank you very much.
It was not to put you on the defense. It was just for the country to understand the shift.
Secondly,
the next question.
The issue of fuel prices is a very emotive matter, extremely emotive. But I will come to it perhaps later. For now, let me just say this, that the road maintenance levy is one of the levies and taxes that constitute the ultimate pump price of fuel. Unfortunately, it doesn't fall within the remit of my ministry if I get approved. The road maintenance levy is a levy which is proposed by the Ministry of Transport and Roads. And it goes through the normal process of parliamentary approval, I believe. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. CS nominee, you have said that nothing changes in the things you believe in. And I want to believe if nothing changes, your publicly known stand on the fight against corruption will continue being so even when you join the ministry, if you are approved. And in view of that, you do know the problems that pervade the power sector, especially in regards to the cost of generation of power and what is offloaded to the Kenya Power and Lighting Company. That independent power producers in this country, over the years, since the early 60s and 70s, to date, continue to sell very expensive power to KPLC, while that power that we generate from Kengen, including the green power in Olkaria and Marsabit Wind Power, the solar farms in northern Kenya, are much cheaper. Will Kenyans, or can Kenyans trust you that when you take office, should you be approved, that you will literally do what they call biting the bullet and fight the power cartels in power generation and sale with the PPA agreements that are there, to make sure that Kenyans eventually can enjoy lower costs of power? Because there is power that is cheaper, and it's there. But we are still on thermal energy, when we have cheaper geothermal energy, we have cheaper wind energy, we have cheaper solar energy. Can we get that assurance from you that you can bite the bullet, relook at many of those contracts, of course within the law, that were procured corruptly to the great detriment of the people of Kenya?
You hold, we'll take another one. Junet.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to put to the nominee that, Mr. Speaker, the nominee is somebody known to me very well, having been his whip for now 2-3 years in Parliament. And he is somebody who believes, the way I know him, he stands with on what he believes. But having said that, I want to tell him that working in Parliament, the way we have worked in Parliament together as a whip and a minority leader, and working in the executive are two different things, two different ball games completely. Having said that, I want to ask him that there are issues that are of energy in nature that require immediate attention. For example, issues of electrification. You know very well, Nominee, that there are places, you know and I know, who have not seen electricity since God created Kenya. They are still in darkness. You know very well that those places have suffered quite some time, and they need urgent help, attention. But promises have been given year in, year out by people who have taken up jobs like the way you're taking. So what Marshall Plan or what measures are you thinking of to help in the next 3 years those areas that have not seen light, not the light of God, but the light of human being, who have not seen it? What are you planning? Secondly, that is last mile. My final question is, it requires a lot of money to be upgraded. And I asked him about these shutdowns that happen in the country that affect airports, that affect even hospitals sometimes. I am praying that it does not happen when you are the minister, if you are approved. But what are you thinking? What are you planning to do about that matter? Because Kenyans are sick and tired of missing electricity without any notice. Thank you very much.
You can answer those.
Yes, Honorable Speaker. Let me start with the Honorable Majority Leader's question about corruption within the energy sector and whether I am prepared to deal with it. Honorable Speaker, my stand on corruption also remains unchanged. I may not be an angel, but I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, throughout my life, yes, I have fought very, very seriously against corruption in all its manifestations. Honorable Speaker, there are two problems with the matter of the IPPs from where I sit. And I want to explain a little bit. First and foremost, our energy sector has undergone or is supposed to be undergoing what we call unbundling. Unlike many other jurisdictions which have got a vertical integration kind of structure, our sector has been unbundled, and therefore we have got agencies or entities that do the drilling of the wells if it comes to geothermal. There are entities that do the generation of power itself, entities that transmit, ultimately entities that distribute to the consumers. Honorable Speaker, we have these IPPs largely at the generation level, where they compete with state entities such as KenGen and to some extent even GDC. And I'll come to that later again. Honorable Speaker, when it comes to the point of generation, I have noticed a problem that I will have to tackle head on. One, you know that in our mix of energy sources, geothermal is one of the clean energy sources and the cheapest. In fact, Honorable Speaker, Kenya is lucky. It is the 6th largest source of geothermal and in the world. In the world, Honorable Speaker. We are lucky because if you look at, if you had a look at a satellite image or picture of the Earth, we fall within what we call the ring of fire. Those are areas where we have got geothermal resources worldwide. Kenya happens to be within that region. And therefore, we are blessed as a country to have geothermal resources that could help our energy be among the cheapest, Honorable Speaker. But what do you see? GDC, which is supposed to do what we call de-risking, yes, because not every private player can do the drilling of the wells. So GDC is supported by taxpayers' money to do the drilling and engine. But now you find that GDC has dug the wells. They have identified, they have got the sites which are ready for development commercially. And you find that licenses for a number of those sites have been given to private entities, these so-called IPPs, a number of whom are not utilizing the sites. They have kept them for purposes of speculation. And therefore starving KenGen, which has got excess capacity of opportunities to generate more power, or geothermal power for that matter. Okay? So the country is losing on that account alone. Persons who have been given licenses, what we call geothermal concessions, and they are holding those licenses, which are public assets in my view, whilst KenGen, which is a publicly owned entity, at least 70%, has the capacity, the expertise, the resources, is not able to get access to those sites to be able to generate for us energy. So that I will have to deal with. But I will have to deal with them by way of first engaging with the Attorney General to see what we can do. What we can do about these licenses that are remaining idle without necessarily exposing the country, of course, okay, to litigation and the likes. But eventually to see to it that in the new dispensation, if such licenses are to be issued, there must be conditions. That you get a license, but you have got certain terms within which to play. That is one. Two, it is this animal that we call take or pay. These are IPPs which have been given, which have signed PPAs, the power producing agreements, with Kenya Power and Lighting Company. And the agreement is such that whatever they generate You either take it, or if you don't take it, you still pay for it. So really, that is not sustainable. And they are very, very, very long-term agreements. Some running to as long as 20 years. Again, I will have to engage the Office of the Attorney General on how to deal with this. But eventually, of course, I'm aware that there is currently a moratorium on the engagement of IPPs following the Presidential Task Force on PPAs that was established earlier in 2021. Even if that moratorium is lifted eventually, we shall have to ensure that whatever PPAs we get into do not put us in that or in such a situation. As a matter of fact, my view is that eventually, because currently we have a very robust legal framework, since the enactment of the Energy Act of 2019, one of my first duties within 100 days, if I am lucky to be approved, would be to ensure that the requisite regulations are brought to fruition, because there are different stages of processing, so that the country can benefit fully, can reap the full potential from this robust legislative framework. But then, if it comes to that, I foresee a situation where this country will not need this kind of lopsided agreements. We may actually want to have an energy auction kind of situation, where you generate your energy, take it to the auction floor, as it were, and then we buy when we need it as consumers, through KPLC, of course. Okay? That is a futuristic view, my Honorable Speaker. Let me quickly go to the next question, because I'm trying to be, okay. Yes, I understand Honorable Jeanette's view that the executive is not like Parliament. I'm here to experience that because, Honorable Speaker, you know, I have never worked in the executive throughout my life. Throughout my life.
You will get to learn.
Yes, so I will get to learn. And I'm a first learner, I believe, Honorable Speaker. So I don't have any qualms that I will be able to fit in fairly well. Honorable Speaker, the immediate issues, which are of concern to nearly all members of the National Assembly, I being one of them, at least for now. The issue of rural electrification, the issue of last mile. Honorable Speaker, I said from the outset that our energy sector is supposed to have been unbundled. But I must add that that unbundling is not yet complete. Why do I say so? You still find Kenya Power and Lighting Company competing with REREC in last mile connections. Honorable Speaker, Kenya Power and Lighting Company is a publicly listed company. It's supposed to be running commercially. It's supposed to be profit motivated, if you ask me. And therefore, it cannot be able to do what NEREC was envisaged to do. That is to extend power.
Nominee.
Yes.
I want to guide you.
Yes.
You have been nominated to be the CS Energy and Petroleum. Instead of pontificating on what they are, tell us, if you are confirmed, what do you want to do with them? That will be your vision, and that will be your message to the country. Because when you engage in a complaining type of narrative, it doesn't give hope to the country.
Let me endeavor to give hope now to the country. Honorable Speaker, therefore
Mr. Speaker, Mr.
Yes.
Speaker, the nominee is trying to shed off the opposition leadership slowly. So
he said
what the energy called load shedding. He's shedding.
He said he's a very fast learner. So now he's learned already.
Thank you for the guidance, Honorable Speaker. Yes. Let me say this. Really,
even those parastatals you're talking about, they are going to be under your watch.
Okay,
so
let me
you
say
tell
this.
us what you want them to be.
As a policy direction,
Yes.
I would endeavor, first and foremost, to separate or to reduce the overlap, okay, in the functions of KPLC and REREC, okay? And to empower REREC fully to be able to undertake the mandate of last mile connections, okay? So that KPLC can concentrate, can focus on its commercial function, business. Is that better, Honorable Speaker?
You are trying.
Okay.
Yes.
Finally, Honorable Speaker, on Honorable Jeanette's question, it is indeed true that we have got fairly dilapidated infrastructure, especially for transmission. Again, you must also understand that these are legacy problems. Before the coming into being of KETRACO, it was the sole duty of or mandate of KPLC to do the whole business from generation to distribution. Some of this infrastructure was inherited, and some improvements have been done, but there's still room for further improvement, especially if we have to take electricity, optimally to those who need it. Honorable Speaker, we have situations where we are not able to evacuate power from the generators, okay, to the end user because of lack of transmission capacity. That's something I'll be working closely with the agencies in my docket to be able to fast track the modernization of the infrastructure. And especially when it comes to the last mile connectivity, we are going to work closely with REREC together with KPLC again, by way of engaging with the development partners to be able to finance this process. I'm aware, Honorable Speaker, before I conclude, that there was a proposal in the now defunct Finance Act 2024 for some money for each constituency. But as a matter of fact, 50 million shillings. In the budget, yes. In the budget, yes. Now that has been removed in the wake of the withdrawal of the Finance Bill 2024. But let me assure my colleague members and the public generally that even with that, all is not lost. We are going to work very systematically with the REREC and KPLC to engage the development partners to help us finance this function. Indeed, even as we speak, there is a project going on which is being funded by the World Bank, okay, in terms of extending powers to those areas where the national grid has not reached, what we call the off-grids. And they have been very helpful, Honorable Speaker. I must commend the management of both KPLC and REREC, because as we speak, there are islands on Lake Victoria which previously had no power. And since the national grid cannot be extended to those areas economically, they have resorted to the off-grid power production, which is really helping those areas. We want to extend this to other areas, especially the far-flung areas of northeastern, okay? Yes, to use solar power to be able to light up those areas.
Thank you.
Yes.
Naisula?
To the nominee, there has been talk about breaking Kenya Power's monopoly. I want to hear your view. This is a conversation that Kenyans have had for a very long time. Shouldn't Kenya have a choice, depending on your, the costs, the operational efficiency, and all that, whether people should be able to have a choice? The second question is that the Auditor General revealed issues related to meters, specifically the absence of check meters, malfunctioning check meters, and inconsistencies between check meters and the main meters. And that is why people get a different bill. It doesn't match. And so I wanted to ask, these are the cartels we have discussed for the last 2 days, people who don't want this country to move forward. And how do you intend to deal with these electricity cartels and address this irregularity in the metering?
Yes, Nelson, we'll take a bundle before you unbundle.
Honorable Wandai, you are heavily opposed to the G2G deal. Now, if this House approves you, you are literally going to oversight the same G2G arrangement because it's still on progress. Has your position shifted, or will your position shift if this committee approves you?
Posing, take the third one as well.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. Honorable Wandai, it's a big problem in the entire Western Kenya in terms of clean power, blackouts. The entire northern Kenya, I mean Western Kenya, that is from Nyanza, South Rift and North Rift. Should you get the favor of the House, how will you tackle that very fundamental issue that is almost historic? Number two, Honorable Wandai, where is tallow oil in Turkana? Go and find out where that animal is. Should have actually produced oil in Kenya. Should be oil producing country. But disappeared. There's a lot of money that has been sunk and nothing is going on. Where is tallow oil? Thank you, Speaker.
Okay, let me endeavor to answer these three.
Very short, we can take the next Kikaria.
Wow, a mouthful.
Those are 4, and they're all very short. You should answer them as with brevity, the same way they are asked.
Thank you, Speaker. Just want to follow up on what Naisula was talking about metering. This is just maybe having been in the energy sector for a while, maybe you need to consider REREC going to the point of even metering a customer, because what happens is that REREC is given the option to take that drop of a wire to a customer, but now they leave the metering to KKPLC, who never take it, and we have over like 3 years. You take 3 years before you're metered. I think it is important for you to look at the metering being done by REREC, and then REREC can be able to inform KPLC for purposes of them now starting to do the charging. But there is this question of customers make applications. Then it takes too long to a point that we encourage illegal contractors to come and put lines and transmission. And then when KPLC realizes there is that, the first thing they do is to go and bring down all the poles. Yet, and my committee then had to go to Navaholo, where they were to be paid 3.5, and they took too long only for somebody else to come in to do that. I think it is important for you to address the issues ailing KPLC, so that we don't. And KPLC is a good. By the way, in the Energy Act 2019, the KPLC is not a monopoly. By the way, anybody can apply and get a license for them to be able to do distribution of power in the country. And that is in the Act. Thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Okay, Honorable Speaker, thank you. Let me start with the Honorable Naisula. And I agree with the Honorable Gikaria. The 2019 Energy Act has actually laid the basis or foundation for other players to come in the energy distribution space. But even as this happens, because it will only happen again once we have put in place the requisite regulations, the subsidiary legislation. But even as this happens, Honorable Speaker, we still need a robust KPLC. And I'll say why. KPLC, because of the legacy, of course, issues, has got an elaborate infrastructure layout across the country. The competencies, the personnel, and so on and so forth, the technical capacity to do what it is supposed to do. In any event, KPLC actually is the revenue collector, okay? Revenue that goes all the way up the upstream. the transmitters, the generators, and so on and so forth. So we still need to ensure that KPLC is run optimally, is efficient, is effective, even as we open that space of distribution to other players, as envisaged under the Energy Act 2019. What I foresee as doing going forward, and I will have discussions with my team if I'm approved, is that we may want to create zones, okay, for purposes of optimal utilization of these resources, so that we avoid conflicts if and when this process begins. And therefore, in short, the monopoly by KPLC is no longer entrenched in law. It is essentially a matter of practice, and we shall deal with it in the fullness of time. Two is the question of faulty meters. This I will have to inquire more about, because what I have been briefed is that we have had problems in procurement of both meters, actually of all items. Yes, but meters more so, and transformers. What has happened is that these cartels that Honorable Chunga talked about, and Honorable Koech, I think, saying, these cartels have become so pervasive, Honorable Speaker, that they can't allow a tendering process to proceed to conclusion and awards to be made without creating roadblocks. We all know for sure that KPLC, being a publicly listed company with majority shareholding being government, is governed by the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Act of 2015, which act, as we all know, Honorable Speaker and members, gives room for tenderers, yes, for bidders, to lodge complaints at every other stage. But that is being abused, Honorable Speaker, by entrenched cartels. And we shall have to work closely with my colleagues in the ministry to deal with this menace, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Koech, on the matter of G2G deal, the G2G deal, it's indeed true, Honorable Speaker, that I, alongside my other colleagues, who are vehemently opposed to this scheme. But let me tell you, Honorable Speaker, that was then. And I was doing it as my duty to put government to check.
I think you already answered that question when you are responding to the Deputy Speaker.
But this is specific. So on this G2G, Honorable Speaker, I am aware that it is running up to end of 2025. That gives me ample time to go and study its impact, its workings, and understand it, and for me to be able to offer appropriate guidance, Honorable Speaker. The Honorable was saying, my chair, my good chair, the matter of power outages or inefficiencies in the Western Kenya belt. Well, but it is more pervasive in the Western Kenya. But I'll explain why.
Sometimes you can have a blackout for 12 hours.
I have already engaged officers, of course informally, in the ministry. And if I am approved, if I'm eventually appointed as CS Energy, I am going to fast track the development of transmission lines, okay, with the requisite capacity to evacuate power and take to the consumers, not only in Western Kenya, but across the country. And in Western Kenya specifically, I'm going to ensure that the Tarkwel or Tum Kitale line is completed and commissioned in the shortest time possible. That will deal with power issues in Pokot, in Kitale, in all that area. I will also ensure similarly that the Kibos or Kisumu, Kakamega, Musaga line is also completed. Similarly, the Narok Bomet line has to be completed within the shortest time possible for the entire southern Nyanza region, including Kisii and Nyamira counties, and Bomet. Of course, Southern Nyanza includes Migori, Homa Bay, and yes, and the islands, yes, in Lake Victoria. So this is something I will actually give utmost priority, Honorable Speaker. Northern Kenya is, of course, at the heart of this strategy. As we speak, there is a line from Loyangalani to Masabit that has to be completed similarly in record time, and the line from Masabit to Isiolo, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the second limb of this question by Honorable Kosing is on the matter of tallow oil. Honorable Speaker, this project is not dead. It could have taken a break, but I've taken it upon myself, if I'm appointed, to ensure that it is revived. Because tallow oil is on the ground. What it lacks is the requisite financial capacity to be able to commercially develop the oil reserves in the lower Lokichar, in the South Lokichar basin, Honorable Speaker. We are going to work closely with tallow oil, with the guidance of the Attorney General, to source for a strategic partner who can bring in some financial capital to be able to have this project completed. But again, time is of essence, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, you know that Kenya is a signatory to the Paris Agreement on carbon emissions. Kenya is a signatory to the Paris Agreement on carbon emissions. And if you recall, the outcome of the conference, the UN conference on climate change, COP27, in Egypt in 2022, if we don't move with speed and extract this oil into Turkana, we may be time-barred because we'll face serious restrictions, including even restrictions from potential financiers. Because the world is moving steadily from fossil fuels to clean energy, Honorable Speaker. And Kenya is not an island. And therefore, I'm going to treat this matter of tallow oil and the oil in South Lokichar Basin with the utmost urgency. Honorable Gikaria, my good friend, member for Nakuru East, I agree with him totally. Nothing stops Kerek from putting in place meters. They can actually do the last mile up to the point of metering. Okay? And then a framework is established for handover to KPLC for purposes of billing, Honorable Speaker. This will create synergy and enhance efficiency and contribute to customer satisfaction, Honorable Speaker. Again, the matter of applications taking too long, I have discussed. And have been made aware of the bottlenecks that the utility companies have been facing. This, again, we shall work on. The question of illegal connections is not necessarily a matter of delayed in processing applications. The matter of illegal connections will still be there even if the applications are processed on time. And we have to deal with it separately or differently. And my proposal, and
it's a crime, you know that.
It's a crime, of course. Yes. It is a crime, but we must also live with the reality that some of these areas where this practice is rampant are not easy to access, even by the officers of Kenya Power and Lighting.
Yes.
Yes. So we are going to work on a proposal, of course, together with Parliament and the Attorney General, to pursue an option of bulk metering. Okay? In those kind of situations, the Kenya Power and Lighting can be empowered to identify one entity or one person who will then be billed, and then he distributes the power to the rest of the
law already
consumers.
allows them to do that. Why don't they?
Yes, that's why I said from the outset, Honorable Speaker, that I will...
Anyway, you are not the minister, so
I will need to
address it when you...
fast-track the issue of the regulations, yeah.
We'll go to the next batch. We'll start with Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the nominee, You know, when Jubilee came into power in 2013, they marketed their last mile connectivity very, very well. In fact, citizens were of the opinion that they would all be connected within like a month or so. And so that has brought a lot of pressure on members of parliament, because whenever people are not connected, they have this belief that the member of parliament is seeking to only power some areas in their constituencies and not others. I would like you to, from your opinion, you know, having of course studied the situation, to tell us what will you do to ensure that this pressure is taken out of members of parliament, because members, you know, the public thinks it's our issue. Now, the other issue is an issue of public confidence, Honorable Andai, in that office, and considering that you have been also with us in the minority, you know. And I'm saying this because you know what Kenyans out there have said, and it will be important for you to address them from this point. What can you tell those Kenyans that believe that you took advantage of the young Kenyan demonstrators, some of whom who died while they were demonstrating, so that you could negotiate your way into government?
Owen?
Thank you very much. After that bomb from your former deputy, I want you, from your former deputy, I just want you to focus on cost of power, Honorable Wandai.
Yeah. Order, Bossing? Yeah?
It has expired. Yeah, I would like to get full attention. Honorable Wandai, the cost of power in this country is such that it is over the roof. If you get a power bill, you look at it, you know, you're paying so many things apart from, in fact, the units that you are paying for actually become a small part of what you're paying for. For this country to rise or fall in terms of manufacturing, in terms of production, the cost of living and the prices of items, it all falls and all rises on the sword of power cost, for which, in your statements, you have said this country, in Parliament, many times in Parliament, you've said that the cost of living in this country is very, very high. But one of the biggest contributors of that cost, of that high cost of living, is power. You are in the middle of it. Apart from thinking about reticulation of power, apart from thinking about all these other things, you have a big elephant in the room. How do you bring the cost of power in this country to reduce the cost of life and also to increase manufacturing, industrialization, and all those other things? Thank you, Honorable Wandai.
Rugara?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Nominee, the ministry you are just about to take over, if this committee and the House approves you, is one of the key ministries in the country akin to roads, water, and every Kenyan is looking upon you to be connected to electricity. And there are not two options to it. Even before I ask you the question, it's good to know that there are historical injustices in terms of power supply in the country, such that, take the case of the year 2017, the Raka constituency was at 9.5% connectivity to the national grid. At the same time, Gatundu South constituency was at 100%. These are all equal Kenyans. There really should not be that disparity. Number two, we have schools. Schools where electricity is just but mandatory. Yet, those areas are not connected to the national grid, and the children are supposed to compete competitively in national exams, which are standard. My question to you is, would you be subscribing to a form of affirmative action in terms of electricity supply to constituencies which have lagged behind? And it's just not Tharaka. You go to Mwingi North, you go to Mbalambala, which is also my neighbor, Bere North, Bere South. these actually have been discriminated against? And therefore, would you be prepared to take affirmative action in respect of those constituencies?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To Honorable Opio Wandai, the nominee. My colleagues have talked about electricity, you have talked about the transformers. Do you see we need to move away from oil-based transformers, because every other day you will hear people removing the oil from the transformers, and we have got transformers which do not work sometimes, or we have got a shortage of transformers. So do you see, will you do research? Because I've done, if you go to the Western world, you do not see any transformer, and I know you've been there. So you do not see transformers there. Do you think we can have KPLC having a company where it will be having fiber optic? I know they are doing it right now, but because of the ICT of this government, to deliver fiber optic to each and every place, because it's a vast network, as you have spoken about it. The last one is about the Kenya Pipeline Refinery. Your predecessor, if you are confirmed, who was here, Davis Chirchir, he said they were looking at it once the oil, which Honorable Posing has talked about, the Tullow oil and all that, once it's done. But I believe if that refinery was there, we could even get cheaper fuel and refine it the way it used to be. So do you think it is possible under your watch if you are confirmed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorables.
You can answer those.
Honorable Speaker. Yes, indeed it is true. That is, with respect to Honorable Mbui's question, that members of parliament are facing serious pressure from the public on the matter of last mile connectivity in the respective constituencies. Because again, it has been taken for granted that this is the work of the MPs, okay? Which they have been doing, of course, very diligently in collaboration with the REREC. Honorable Speaker, what we need to do, in my view, is to properly resource REREC. Properly resource REREC as we work on the efficiencies for this rural electrification to be fast-tracked. As we speak, the data I have is that we are at about 76% penetration. That, of course, is theoretical. Because, you know, in some areas, it's as low as 10%, while in others, it is over 100%. Yes. So I'm very much alive to that fact. In fact, we need also to bring on board counties, county governments. Honorable Speaker, under Schedule 4 of the Constitution, the counties have a role also in energy, more so in street lights. Okay? What has happened in the past is that REREC has been able to build street lights, which street lights go off soon after they are commissioned for lack of payment of bills and maintenance, which they presume is the mandate of the counties, Honorable Speaker. So my view, this set of affairs is not tenable. We must make a decision, and I'll be coming back to Parliament. Okay? We must make a decision as to whether to empower REREC fully, to be able to be in charge of this street lighting, up to including payment of bills. But more importantly, if we can now move away from the grid, national grid, and establish solar street lights, okay, which will be easy to manage in the long term. That's a discussion we must have urgently, because these are important facilities. Honorable Speaker, on the matter of public confidence, as raised by Honorable Mbui, you know, Honorable Speaker, I am very clear in my mind, extremely clear, because I've been on this space for quite some time. The Gen Zs, or the youth, were not raising any different issues from the issues you and I, Honorable Mbui, have raised over the years. they could have had a different style. Okay? But the issues they were raising were pertinent issues, which you all agree must be dealt with. Okay? And therefore, it is not proper to say that we have taken advantage of the Gen Z's clamor to get into government. First and foremost, Honorable Speaker, I never applied to join the executive, but I was pleasantly surprised and felt greatly honored that my name was recommended. And His Excellency the President went ahead to nominate me.
You know the facts. Just answer the questions.
So, Honorable Speaker, I still maintain the view that we are not in any way in betrayal of the cause.
Don't allow Mbui to bully you.
Of the youth, yes.
And have no apologies.
Yes.
Yes.
But again, Honorable Speaker, as I conclude on that one, you know, we are basically coming on board in a paradigm shift. I'm very pleased that the President has actually declared that we have to adopt a paradigm shift in the management of government and state affairs. And I'm most privileged if I'm approved.
In our country.
In our country.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We are living in different times. Yes, so we must also think differently. Sorry. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Baya, you are right. The cost of power is exorbitant in Kenya. Even if you compare ourselves to our neighboring countries, especially Ethiopia and even Uganda, really. But part of the reason why our cost of power is too high, is the exorbitant amount of commercial and technical losses that Kenya Power, especially incurs. Kenya Power loses up to 23% of the power it buys from the generators. Okay? In other words, it doesn't sell. Almost 23% of the power it buys from the generators.
Efficiency and recklessness.
Yes, there are many factors.
You must assure the country that this will stop.
This is going to be managed. I can't say it will stop, Honorable Speaker, because in any scientific process, there can be losses. But they have to be reasonable losses, Honorable Speaker. Yes. So we are going to work closely with the KPLC, and I'm happy, Honorable Speaker, by the work the KPLC management is doing currently. As a matter of fact, I'm privy to the information that they have done some turnaround. I'm not allowed by the rules of the CMA to get into details. But they have done some turnaround, and they may post some good figures in the coming...
Don't be prejudiced by briefs you have received. You'll get there and learn.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'm just being optimistic. Yes. And giving the country hope. To borrow your words.
Yes. Okay. Continue.
Honorable Speaker, let me dash to the question, by Honorable Daoud. Murugara.
Murugara first.
Murugara, yes. Honorable Speaker, it is true, there have been historical injustices. Okay? And we must work together in terms of addressing these injustices or these imbalances. We must correct them. That's systematically. But I must also throw a challenge to my colleagues in the National Assembly, because I'm aware that this lopsided allocation of resources, especially on energy and electricity, is also coming from us in Parliament at the budget time. The agencies, the ministries, are receiving printed estimates with figures which they cannot change, they can't touch, which figures are scary, Honorable Speaker. You find one constituency being allocated upwards of 400 million Kenya shillings, while another one is getting a paltry 10 million Kenya shillings in the same financial year. So we must also actually do some introspection as a House to help us in the ministry, if and when I am approved, to deal with this issue. You know, once you bring printed estimates, the ministry, the agencies have got no leg room. They have no room to maneuver. Okay? So these imbalances, these injustices may continue as we watch, Honorable Speaker. There is also the issue of solar for schools. There is currently a very robust project being undertaken by REREC, the solar for schools. We want to follow through this project to ensure that at least every school in this country is able to benefit.
Point of order, no. Point of order.
George?
Point of order. Solar has been tried from time immemorial. It works only for 1 month, 2 months, it just dies. And those schools will remain in the books of KPLC or whoever that they are connected through solar when actually it is not working. So it doesn't make sense whatsoever for Kenya Power or for RELEC to introduce or to go back to that solar business. Let us get connection to the national grid so that we also assured of constant electricity supply.
Point of order, Chairman, on the same.
Yes.
And you know, this was done mostly from the regions I come from. It is so that if you do electricity, the households around the school also are connected to power. But now if you give us solars, you're just giving to the schools, they're vandalized, they're not working, and you continue to marginalize us on issues to do with electricity. We don't want the solars.
Point of order, Speaker. Point of order.
And it is vendor-driven, the solars.
Yeah, point of order, Chair. I just want to urge my colleagues that, you know, the nominee is actually a nominee. And we are addressing the nominee like the CS for energy, a decision
Which
we are yet to
not.
make. Because the pressure is on him now dealing with solar versus, you know, regular energy. So.
No, it's important for him to know.
Probabilities. We are working on the probabilities.
You are being warned of landmines ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I've taken note, yeah. I've taken note, Honorable Speaker. Let me just proceed quickly to Honorable Dawood. Yes, I've gotten your point on the possibility of moving from oil-based transformers to something else. I need to check with the technical people to be able to give some feedback on that. Honorable Speaker, there's an issue raised, the Honorable Dawood raised, on the Kenya oil refinery. Did you mean refinery or the Kenya pipeline?
Oil refinery with the pipeline.
Yes. You know, I am aware that the Kenya oil refinery has or is in the process of being acquired by the Kenya Pipeline Company. I will need to get into the details as to the rationale behind this, but I still foresee a very big role for the Kenya oil refinery, at least its installation. Firstly, in terms of the processing of the crude oil, if and when it finally flows from the south Lokichar, yes, to Mombasa. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, I have come to the realization that this country does not have provision for strategic reserve of oil. That we can actually, one of these days, wake up and find that we can't bring oil to Mombasa. And then, after some few days or weeks, we are ground to a halt as a country. So I think this facility in Mombasa can still be useful in future, once we work on the strategic oil for the country that can last for at least 90 days. That's the best practice universally, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
You have not answered if KPLC can do the fiber accompany. Would it be possible or not?
I will also pursue this. Yes.
Mary Emase.
Thank you. Nominee, you've talked about customer satisfaction. I put it to you that KPLC customers are the most dissatisfied. And I want to believe that there are serious management challenges to do with the leadership of KPLC. Why do I say that? A simple task, but of urgent nature, like restoring a falling post or a collapsing post, goes a time bomb. It can collapse any time, it's posing danger, and in certain instances it has occasioned deaths. It will take forever before it is restored. Actually, there is one about to fall onto my house. You will call the regional, so-called regional directors. There is no response. Secondly, restoring power when there are those frequent outages. A transformer has failed or has busted, and some of them are in learning institutions in our regions. It is adversely affecting learning. In my constituency, some of them have taken more than 6 months, and it's not only in my constituency, it cuts across the country. If you are actually approved, you tell us what you're going to do about some of these management issues. Meter acquisition, you have applied for meters. And I'm told even these meters are already being adulterated by the cartels in the industry. You will wait forever. Kenyans have to bribe to get meters. Now, knowing the Wandai that we know, I want to believe you're going to fight corruption in the energy sector. Sometimes, villagers have had to come together in there's a chama for power, so that they put money together to procure an independent electrician to restore power. This is the Kenya we are living in, Honorable Wandai. And finally, you've talked about making sure that all the power lines, the projects that are incomplete or ongoing, that you will make sure they are completed in the shortest time possible. And I'm asking myself, Honorable Wandai, where are you going to get the money from? Because after rationalization of the budget and the collapse of the finance bill, which you strongly objected to, reject the bill, can you tell us where you're going to get resources to finance all those projects? Because I want to believe the reason they are incomplete is because of funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Nominee, there are some key transmission lines that are yet to be constructed. And with the shrinking revenue and reduced headroom to borrow, what are you going to do to ensure that they are done, since the country needs them?
Honorable Mishimbo.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chairman. Honorable Chairman, my first question is on environmental concerns. And I'm talking about the proposed Lamu coal power plant. I know there have been some opposition from environmental groups concerned about the impact on the local ecosystem. So my question is, how will you balance energy needs with environmental protection? My second question, it is on the issue of the project dubbed the Lake Turkana Wind Power Project. I know you are once the chair of PAC, and I was also in the committee of PAC, and this matter kept on coming and coming each and every time. This project was at a tune of 70 billion, and so many billions had been already utilized. So I just want to ask you, do you see that the taxpayers' money had some value to where we are right now in regards to that Lake Turkana wind? I know you are not yet the Minister for that energy. Maybe you are going to be approved. I want you to check on this, because a lot of money have really been utilized, and yet we don't see any tangible results from that. My last question, it is in reference on what happened in Embakasi on the 2nd of February, where there was the explosion, and so many Kenyans were killed and some were injured. Again, there was an explosion by the petroleum tanker in Sashangwani about 11 years back, the other one at Molo. So my concern is, what safe standard measures are you going to put in place to ensure that we save Kenyans from such fatal accidents and any other times? I thank you, Honorable Chairman.
Shuria.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Mheshimiwa Wandai. And as my colleague Murugada said, Balambala is connected to the national grid. And when we have power outages, you can imagine in my constituency, just to repair some lines took 7 months, and the people of Balambala were in the dark for 7 months. I appreciate KPLC. I've been trying to call them to fix, which finally they said they will this week. Kindly, can you, if approved, could you look into the turnaround or how fast they can attend to faults within the line, because you can imagine a whole constituency which produces almost 54 megawatts and adds it to the national grid through solar, being in the dark for 7 months. How will I explain that to my constituents? So kindly look into that. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
It doesn't require kindness, it requires responsibility.
You know, he was my leader, so sometimes I have to treat him with the same respect that I did when he was my leader.
It requires responsibility. Nominee, can you answer those?
Okay, I'll try to be brief. And again, Honorable Mase is spot on. Yeah, the matter of customer satisfaction is known to all of us in terms of services by KPLC. What I think, without really going into details, because I'm here to assume the office, Honorable Speaker, what I think KPLC requires, and it's a giant company, actually employing over 10,000 people. What I think KPLC requires is an urgent, what we call business process reengineering, to look at the totality, okay, of the architecture of the management of KPLC processes and functions. Honorable Speaker. 2 is the question of transmission lines that are yet to be completed. Honorable Speaker, some of the lines, actually nearly all of the lines that I mentioned earlier on, that I will try to fast track their completion, have got funding. Okay? They have got funding as we speak. And most of the funding coming from development partners. So my work will be to work closely with the agencies responsible to have these projects completed within the timelines that are stipulated. Honorable Murkomen again is basically speaks to the question that has been raised by Honorable Mase. Yes. And I will work closely with you if I get the honor of being approved. Yeah, to see to it that this is done, the matter of completion of these transmission lines. Honorable Mishi, yes. The question of carbon emissions is very serious. But again, we shall have to work closely with all stakeholders to strike a balance between energy needs of the country and environmental protection. That delicate balance will have to be struck, Honorable Speaker. Yes. Lake
just on the same.
Yes.
If you allow me, Mr. Speaker, I don't want to allow myself. Thank you. I would like to ask you a question on nuclear energy. You know, there's a proposal in my...
It's not the same.
No,
He
it's...
was answering a question on coal.
That is called, this is nuclear.
So how can it be the same?
It's different.
Yes. Let him finish answering those questions, then I'll give you...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Speaker, Lake Turkana wind project. Honorable Speaker, for sure, this is a matter again of public notoriety. I kept hearing about it when I was in the last parliament, I think. Yes, it was within the purview of the Committee on Energy and PIC then. I'm aware, despite all the issues that were raised then and even now, that eventually the power is being generated. Okay? As a matter of fact, Honorable Speaker, in our total installed, out of our total installed energy capacity, which is about 3,200 megawatts, the wind power is accounting for about 460 megawatts or so, the bulk of which is from this Lake Turkana wind. So I will take time once I assume, if and when I assume office, to establish more details surrounding this project, yes, and to draw lessons from it that could inform our future engagement with similar projects. Yeah. Yeah, Honorable Speaker, yes, again, the issue of gas explosion in Bakassi, Sachangwan, and so on and so forth, is a question of regulation. It's a question of regulation. I will be working closely with EPRA and enforcement of the law. Yes, I'll work closely with EPRA to see to it that these occurrences are a thing of the past In fact, Honorable Speaker, one of the areas I'll be focusing on, if I get to be appointed, is to push the LPG uptake by the public in terms of cooking, okay? From the current about 40% to 100% by 2028, actually, 2028. That should be the target, Honorable Speaker. And we are going to work closely with all the relevant players to ensure that we make it possible for the Kenyan people in the countryside and everywhere else to access gas, clean energy for cooking. Because we can no longer continue in the manner we are continuing of using charcoal, using firewood. It's not sustainable, Honorable Speaker. Yeah. And therefore, if for this to happen, we must put in place a proper enforcement mechanism to forestall such unfortunate occurrences that have happened in the past. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Shurie of Mbalambala, again, the same issue of response by KPLC that was raised by Honorable Emasi. But I'm also happy that the solar plant in Garissa is really contributing immensely to the national grid. Currently, solar energy is accounting for about 220 megawatts of our total installed capacity, the bulk of which is coming from Garissa, and Mbalambala to be specific. I'm also happy, Honorable Speaker, to notify honorable members that there's also a line which I need to fast track, a transmission line from Garsen to Garissa, that if completed will also help in connecting the populace around that area to the national grid. Honorable Baya, if you allow me, I just finish with him. Yes. Honorable Baya's question on nuclear energy.
He did not finish asking. Now you can ask.
I would like to say this, yes, we must generate electricity through other means, including safe energy like nuclear. There is a proposal to set up a nuclear plant in a place called Uyombo in Kilifi North constituency. And this has elicited a lot of reactions. It's not just about environment, it's just about human beings and preparedness of this country in venturing into nuclear energy and nuclear waste and all that whole realm about nuclear. But the people of Uyombo have said no, they have refused. And looking at many factors, and they have a right, they've been forced, they've been beaten, many things have happened to force them into this nuclear. Would you stand with the people of Uyombo and actually agree with them and look for other sources of energy other than nuclear?
Honorable Speaker, let me just take some 2 minutes to explain something. First and foremost, Kenya is a member state of the International Atomic Energy Agency that regulates matters nuclear across the world. And Kenya has adopted the International Atomic Agency's milestone approach in terms of establishing a nuclear energy plant. In this approach, there are phases that we have to go through. I am informed that the first phase, which involves public participation, among other things, has been undertaken. But more importantly, Honorable Speaker, we have even gone further and identified a site, an alternative site, as is required under the framework of the IEA. And the site, Honorable Speaker, is in Kwale County. The alternate site is in Kilifi County. The alternate site is in Kwale County, Honorable Speaker. What I want to assure honorable members, even though I haven't assumed the office, is that once I assume the office, if I do so, I will revisit the matter. Not as a way of stopping it, but as a way of encouraging more holistic involvement of all stakeholders as we move forward. Because this country, Honorable Speaker, my view, that is my personal view now, needs nuclear energy.
It is not only clean, but very cheap.
Correct. It will only rival geothermal energy in terms of contributing to our baseload, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Russell.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Wandai, I think for your information, Lake Turkana Wind Power evacuates 360 megawatts to the national grid. But Marsabit the main town in the area is on power, on diesel generators. That is the inequality that is there. So my question is, in Vision 2030, we as a country project to be a middle-income country and industrialized. But that cannot happen without having power, because 3.3, gigawatts is not enough power to seriously run industries. And there are also many interests in the power sector, cartels, big corporations who have interest. There are many who have preceded you. I really want to hear from you, what is it different that you are likely to do? Honorable Mbuya said something, Juneta said something, and you come from some other corner. Maybe you bring a new type of thinking to all this. Maybe you will share with us. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Honorable Andai, the nominee, I want to look at Kenyans and to tell them what new formula are you going to bring to the energy sector to see the pump of oil in the petrol station go down and to see the purchase of electricity in this country goes down by at least 30%. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to follow up where Honorable Imase left, Mary. Billing of Kenya Power, if you do get through, if there is wrong billing, you have to pay before you even complain. It's like KRA. So if you do go in, would you probably talk to them and, if there is a dispute, of course you don't pay the whole thing. Thank you.
Honorable Speaker, beginning with the Honorable Russell's question, yes, it's indeed true that the Turkana power, wind power, the energy from it is not going to Marsabit. Okay? And of course, this is a factor of transmission, Honorable Speaker, which I said earlier on, yes. And in fact, I now plans to take it down to Mombasa. Yes, to Mariakani. Yeah. So I think we still have to look at our transmission network and see how cost-effectively we can re-engineer it to serve the country better. Honorable Speaker, Honorable Russell has spoken about a very serious issue here. Kenya, of course, aspires to be a middle-income economy. This is according to the country's Vision 2030, which is in line with the East Africa Community's Vision 2030 also. Yeah. Honorable Speaker, there is no way we are going to industrialize and therefore grow the economy without an assured supply of clean, reliable power or energy. I was just looking at some statistics, Honorable Speaker. A state like California in the US, which is the same landmass as Kenya, has got an installed capacity of 60,000 megawatts. The peak requirement, I'm told, is about 40,000 megawatts. Kenya has got an installed capacity of 3,200 megawatts with a peak requirement of 2,200 megawatts. So we are playing in different leagues, and yet we want to grow through industrialization. My take is that we must increase our installed capacity based on clean energy sources. Geothermal, of course, hydro, even if it is not very reliable, because sometimes we get prolonged drought. But we must continue to increase this. And that's why I'll be very keen in ensuring how licensing for these geothermal sites is done going forward. We have to give the KenGen the capacity, the mandate to generate more power, okay, which then will attract investors. Because once we have got enough power, Honorable Speaker, people will come and establish industries. Their school of thought that has it that first of all we establish the industrial parks. Then power will. I don't think we have to find a balance, Honorable Speaker. The fact of the matter is that we need cheap power or energy for us to attract investments and for the economy to grow eventually. Honorable Mule, the pump price of fuel, we must understand, is not just a simple matter. What contributes to eventual pump price of fuel, I think, are threefold. One is the landed cost. Landed cost at Mombasa, of course, will vary from time to time based on other factors globally, including the war in Ukraine. Now, the other day you saw the Hamas leader was killed. It creates shocks in the oil market. Correct. All those factors will contribute to the landed price, landed cost at Mombasa. That's one factor. And we have no control over that as a country. The second factor is taxes and levies, which to a large extent is determined by the House, the National Assembly and the Senate, I believe. So I'll be working closely with you if I get appointed to address that. But the third factor, Honorable Speaker, which we as a ministry may have more control over, is the question of storage and transportation of fuel, the logistics. And on this call, I will be working closely with the Kenya Pipeline Company to enhance efficiencies. I'm happy to note that there are opportunities for the Kenya Pipeline Company to extend its pipeline, which is currently about 1,340 kilometers, from Mombasa to Kisumu and Eldoret. There are opportunities to extend that pipeline to Kampala and eventually to Kigali, and possibly to DRC, Honorable Speaker. If and when we do that, then KPLC will be able to generate more revenues, okay, and reduce its costs, operational cost, which of course goes into the pump price, you know. Honorable Speaker, you know, you are aware that Uganda has, since this month, I think, started importing its fuel directly. But even still, it's using our pipeline, okay? Which is a benefit to us. We're not losing anything, really. Previously, we would... The pipeline world over is a highway. Correct. Yes. And they're paying us. Previously, out of the 100% imported fuel or petroleum products, Uganda would take 20%. But now that 20%, it is importing directly, but still passing through our pipeline. How I wish the extended pipeline to Kampala and DRC could be owned by Kenya, you know, Honorable Speaker, if it's possible. Because pipeline makes money in two ways. One, by the volume that goes through it. Two, by the distance that volume travels. So I think we have got serious opportunities to make Kenya Pipeline Company more competitive, even now it is posting fairly good profits.
Pipelines all over the world are not constructed with domestic resources. They're so lucrative that any lender will give you money. So it's up to you to go and organize.
Thank you. I think it's finished, basically. Yes.
Yes.
I'm going to look at why they are billing you incorrectly, Honorable Dawood and other. Okay, another consumers here.
Nominee, let me ask you a question or two. Kenya Power is a monopoly. In fact, the biggest monopoly in this country. And yet we keep on seeing stories that it is technically insolvent or has serious financial difficulties. If you find favor and become the CS, what are you going to do to ensure that this monopoly that has a stranglehold over every sector of life in Kenya that collects money from everybody, some upfront with prepaid meters, becomes profitable and pays a dividend to the treasury because it is a state company. Number two, and this follows what Rahim was saying, there is a lot of erratic billing by Kenya Power. Yours truly here has been a regular victim. They give you one bill of 28,000 in 1 month, the next month they give you 89,000. And it's the same consumption in the house. There is one time they gave me a bill, nominee, of 550,000 for a month. And they came and disconnected my power from the pole. And they're the only supplier, so you have to pay. What are you going to do about this? Then you had Mbalambala MP. A breakdown has taken 7 months without fixing. Will you consider, if you are confirmed, to sit with KPLC and give them strict timelines and schedules within which to respond to public needs? If there's a breakdown, it should not take more than a day, time allowing or not allowing 2 days, but 7 months is unacceptable. If you are confirmed, you know, we are giving, and the government has done very well for the last over 10 years. Schools have been connected with power in many parts of the country. But if you go to these schools, if you turn up as an MP, the first thing you are told is, we have not paid our electricity bill. Please help us to pay. Would you consider having an arrangement where schools and public institutions are charged subsidized rates so that they do not pay commercial rates like industries, factories, and other households? So that in some schools you go, there is power connection, but the only thing it's used is teachers charging their phones, nothing else. They cannot afford to use it for anything else. So if you can consider that. Lastly, if you are confirmed, you know, I was the first electricity regulator in this country, you remember? At that time, when we carried out a study, there was in the Southern Africa countries called the Southern Power Pool, where Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Botswana, Lesotho, Swazi were all interconnected. So if there was a shortage of power in Zambia, it automatically flows in from the connection in the pool and vice versa. Would you consider working with your counterparts in the region to create a power pool for the East African countries, including Ethiopia that now has enormous capacity after the Renaissance Dam, so that we can, in times of straits like droughts, it automatically flows into Kenya, there is metering, and we pay for it.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will answer them in the reverse. And I agree with you. We have no option but join in the East Africa Power Pool. First, as a way of creating for our actors additional market. So that if we do what we are promising to do of increasing our installed capacity, then excess energy can find an outlet, Honorable Speaker. And in the converse, if we are short of energy for whatever reason, we can get energy from the neighboring countries within the pool easily into our national grid Honorable Speaker. There are no two ways about it. The issue of possible subsidy for schools is a great idea in my view, Honorable Speaker, and it's an issue I may have to pursue and see to what extent it can be actualized. If and when we adopt it, it looks very revolutionary because the schools are actually suffering a great deal in terms of struggling to pay these bills. And the issue of erratic billing by KPLC, which was clearly indicated earlier on by Honorable Dawood. The issue of KPLC profitability, despite being a monopoly. Honorable Speaker, I said from the outset that in my view, based on what I've seen on the desk, my desktop analysis, the KPLC would require nothing short of a business process reengineering. But then, if and when I get appointed eventually, I will have to have a sitting with the KPLC management and other players to dig deeply into the matter of KPLC, so that when eventually we prescribe solutions, the solutions that will have long-lasting impact for the benefit of the people of Kenya, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
I've sent a few questions. Some have been put to you and you have answered. Will you end KPLC monopoly? That I've just asked you. And corruption in the petroleum industry, what will you do about it? When you revamp oil drilling in northern Kenya, I think this you have all answered. Another one says KPLC sacked 40 staff in Mombasa in 2020. When they appealed, the managers who had sacked them sat on the appeal and summarily dismissed it. Will you intervene if you are confirmed? Then other one, yes, Maya? The other one is, what strategies do you plan to implement to reduce or eliminate power outages and improve the reliability of electricity supply across the country? This you have answered. Can you outline specific measures to enhance the efficiency and capacity of the national grid? You have answered. Illegal power connections not only result in significant revenue losses, but also pose serious safety risks. What steps will you take to curb illegal power connections and ensure that all consumers are legally and safely connected to the electricity grid? How will you collaborate with law enforcement and other relevant agencies to address this issue comprehensively? I think you have also touched on that. And finally, it's to also indicate to you, nominee, that in comparable jurisdictions like Philippines, power losses amount to just about 5 to 6%. And here you talked of what, 40%? 23%. It's unacceptable. Owen?
Yeah, I have a question here from one of the people watching. It says, hello, Mheshimiwa, my name is Kibor, an employee of KPLC and a skilled contract. Can you ask Honorable Opio why we've stayed almost 5 years under contract, yet they bring unskilled employees instead of hiring us? And he says, we have 892 skilled fundis who are under contract in KPLC, and they have refused to hire.
You are not a minister. You will not answer that. And you are not solving industrial problems in KPLC. Yes, we are being vetted. Yes. Honorable members, we'll now... Yes, Mary? From? No. You have? Go ahead. One only.
Sorry. One is from a Kenyan who is complimenting you and saying if you open the refinery, they'll have opportunity for internship as students. The other one is asking, how long does it take to compensate a Kenyan whose house was burnt in 2022 through a transformer fault? So if you get to office, how long will you take to compensate such Kenyans?
Honorable Speaker, I think if I am lucky to be appointed, I will take up these issues with the relevant persons in KPLC here.
Yes, nominee, can you answer the following questions? Have you been adversely mentioned in any integrity-related report?
Not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
Do you hold any leadership position in any political party within Kenya?
No, I'd resigned last week from both ODM and Azimio La Umoja Coalition Party.
What is your net worth?
My net worth is about 530 million Kenya shillings.
530. Made of?
Well, it's largely cash, a little bit of cash, real estate, a lot of interest in real estate, developed, and also farms. I have farms all over, Honorable Speaker, in Siaya. In Siaya.
You've been buying out your neighbors?
Not really. I also have a farm in Narok, Honorable Speaker. I've got some plots in Kitengela.
Yes.
In Migori, yes. In Honorable Junior's constituency.
In Bungoma?
Bungoma, no. I have got some residential houses in Migori.
Yes.
Yeah, in Nairobi here, on Kangundo Road.
Yes. That is unsolicited information. Nominee, unless you are otherwise lawfully held, we received how many? 13 memoranda on you. You responded to all of them satisfactorily. Your documents have been checked with what we have, and they have been found to be in order. You are therefore released to go about your duties. You know, you are a member of this committee. Ordinarily, you are a member of this committee.
Yes, I know, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
You are not allowed to participate in any of the proceedings in this regard.
Most obliged.
Thank you. Actually, we have not discharged him from the committee.
Once he leaves Parliament.
Yes, once you...
You need to discharge him now.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. And I want to thank you for the manner in which you have conducted this process up to now. And can only look forward to your favorable consideration when you retreat to do your report, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Honorable Wandai. I'm delighted that for a change, you can plead. Honorable members, we break for 10 minutes. No, 10, so that the staff can also put on your desks the documents for the next. Yes. Honorable members, we have quorum. Let's. Where is the front row on my right? Anyway, we have quorum. Okay. Call in the next nominee. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Speaker.
Welcome to the Appointments Committee of the House. We are conducting confirmation hearings or vetting, as is commonly known, of persons that have been nominated by His Excellency the President to be checked to see if they are suitable to hold office as cabinet secretaries. Your name is Honorable Onesimus Kipchumba Murkomen, EGH.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
For the record, the committee here is chaired by yours truly, the Speaker of the National Assembly. On my right is the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Gladys Bose. Jeremiah Ndombi on my left is the Deputy Clerk. I'll invite all the members to introduce themselves, starting with Naisula, for the record.
Naisula Lesuda, MP Samburu West.
Kimani Shongo.
Junet Mohammed.
Nelson Koech.
Kosin David.
Gikaria David.
Emase Mary, Teso South.
Abdul Rahim Daoud, Nodimenti.
Owen Bayer, Kilifi North.
Robert Mbui, Kadhiani.
Stephen Mule, Matungulu.
Didoraso Saku.
Abdishurie, Balambala.
Mishimboko Likoni.
Rehab Mukami, Nyeri.
Kitonga Murugara, Tharaka.
Thank you, Honorable Murkomen. You will, of course, be asked questions to answer them on oath. We have the holy books there. We have the Bible, we have the Hindu holy book, and the Quran. Depending on your faith, which one do you swear by? The Holy Bible. Take it in your right hand and recite the oath.
I, Onesimus Kipchumba Murkomen, do swear that the evidence I shall give before this committee of the matter under its consideration shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
I'm sure the mic is not. You are suffering from diminishing returns. You may sign the oath. Honorable Murkomen, you are one of the few who have got the luck to be vetted twice within 2 years. This is the same committee that vetted you some about 18 months ago. Before we embark on the business, hand over your certificates through the sergeant to the clerk to check against what we have. You've also been a colleague of all these members in Parliament for the last 2 terms. In fact, 2.5 terms, or 2 terms and some fraction. So these are your colleagues. I have directed them in cases where we have met former colleagues like Wandai, like Badi, to ask questions without fear or favor, with dignity and respect to each other. And we want precise and concise answers to punguze story mingi. And I've also requested the members that avoid unnecessary preambles to your questions. You just ask your questions so that they can be responded to. So to start in earnest, Honorable Murkomen, give us a short, no more than 5-minute opening statement telling us your name, your educational background, your work experience, your key competences that make you suitable for the appointment to which you have been nominated as Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for this opportunity. First, let me start by appreciating His Excellency the President for nominating me for a second time to serve this Republic. And should I be approved by this House, I will do it with dignity and vigor. Mr. Speaker, I am born and brought up in the eastern slopes of Cherangani Hills, a place called Embobut, where I went to school, and thereafter went both to St. Joseph's High School, Kitale, and St. Patrick's High School, Iten. Both schools are sports giants. As a matter of fact, St. Joseph's Kitale did exceptionally well this year in the football matches, but St. Patrick's High School has always been known to be the athletics powerhouse. I brushed shoulders with world champions and gold medalists, some of whom were my classmates, but I didn't run. Instead, I was a footballer, Mr. Speaker, and I did fairly well based on the standards then in the district. Mr. Speaker, thereafter I joined the University of Nairobi to study law at the University of Nairobi School of Law, and graduated in 2004. Thereafter, I was awarded a scholarship to study for a postgraduate degree in law at the University of Pretoria, where I did a master's degree in trade and investment law in Africa. And thereafter, I also went to the American University Washington College of Law, where I did another degree, a master's degree in international law. Mr. Speaker, I was in between. Before the master's program, I did my privilege and was admitted to, I actually was awarded a diploma in law and thereafter admitted to the bar. Mr. Speaker, upon return from the United States in 2007, I was employed to teach at the Catholic University of Nairobi, where I am very proud of the first cohort of my students in my time, one of whom is the president of the Law Society of Kenya. Thereafter, Mr. Speaker, I joined Moi University, as also I taught in Moi University until the time I resigned in 2012 to join politics. In between, I was an adjunct lecturer at the University of Nairobi, Kenyatta University, and a few other colleges and institutions. And Honorable Junaid Mohammed was a beneficiary of that knowledge, Mr. Speaker, in the legal profession. Mr. Speaker, other than that, I need to say that the most relevant part of this experience in the university and college, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that throughout my tenure from high school to the university, I was a student leader. As a matter of fact, at the University of Nairobi, I was the first student to be elected to the president of the Law Society in my second year. And Mr. Speaker, I also served as chair for SONU for a short period of time as we reconstituted SONU. And Mr. Speaker, I also was the CU chair not just for the University of Nairobi, but all the CUs in the country. I am a product of student movement. I have been brought up, mentored, both in Christian leadership circles and also in the political movement of students.
When you say CU means Christian Union.
Christian Union, yes.
Somebody can think it's Cafeteria Union.
It's not CCU at the University of Nairobi. It's actually, Mr. Speaker, the Christian Union. Mr. Speaker, I was the president of the Fellowship of Christian Unions leadership across the country. Mr. Speaker, beyond that, I need to say that I also was a board member of the Youth Agenda, where our focus was to make sure that we mainstream youth issues. Mr. Speaker, I have worked with many civil society, both as a consultant, but also as a volunteer in the board. I do a lot of sports-related issues. Mr. Speaker, I was the captain of Bunge FC. And I see my members here, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Kikaria was a fantastic midfielder, a bit aggressive sometimes, but Mr. Speaker, I was the captain, and we did exceptionally well during my tenure, and I scored so many goals in different countries in East Africa. I say this, Mr. Speaker, because of the relevance of this sector of creative economy, youth, and sports. And Mr. Speaker, I'm a passionate sports fan, Mr. Speaker, and I believe that my nomination shall contribute to making the issues of the youth, Mr. Speaker, successful. I need to conclude by saying that I was elected in 2013 as a very young leader, not too young, but at least within the bracket of the youth. I was 32 years old. I came to the Senate, Mr. Speaker, and served immediately, nominated to serve in Pan-African Parliament, became the chair of Devolution Committee, graduated quickly to become the deputy majority leader. By second term, Mr. Speaker, I was the majority leader in the Senate. And Mr. Speaker, in my third term, in all these situations, the people of Elgeyo-Marakwet County elected me 3 times by a minimum of 75% of the votes. As a matter of fact, the last term, I was elected by 90% of the votes. Mr. Speaker, in all these processes of leadership, I got an opportunity to serve as a cabinet secretary for roads and transport, a position I held for until the 11th of November, 11th of July, when the president dissolved the cabinet. Mr. Speaker.
He didn't dissolve, he dismissed.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Yes. Until then, I served in that capacity, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Murkomen. Welcome. I'll now invite the Deputy Speaker to be the first to ask you a question.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Kipchumba Murkomen, my questions will just be two-way, where you're going and where you had come from, because we will judge your competence as a Cabinet Secretary for Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports based on your performance in your previous position of Cabinet Secretary for Roads and Transport. So I'd like us to tell us what you found when you went to the Ministry of Roads and Transport, and then what were your key achievements, and what is your legacy, so to speak, so that if we are to assess what Murkomen did during that time, we can be able to judge you by that. And then secondly, I'd like you to now tell us what is your vision when you go to the Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports docket. What's your vision of it? What are the challenges you have? Because you've been listening out, you've been in cabinet, you know what the challenges are, and you can make explanation on that. And as you know, I've been very vocal about that particular ministry. Thank you.
Proceed to answer.
Thank you, Mr.
And we expect
Speaker.
concise and precise responses.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I start by saying that my greatest success in the Ministry of Roads and Transport is leadership. My first responsibility was to be a leader, to put together a team that works together, to make sure that the ministry and the state agencies are working together seamlessly, Mr. Speaker. Some of the agencies that I found dysfunctional especially Kenya Airports Authority, with too many of its senior staff acting, I made sure that, Mr. Speaker, we fixed that problem, because that problem was the cause of the other systemic problem within the institution itself. Mr. Speaker, I operated and worked with the managing directors, director generals, the PSS as a team, and at no time, Mr. Speaker, did you hear any squabbles in the ministry. Number two, the second success for me is to be able to lead for the 2 years with integrity and honor, without, Mr. Speaker, bringing my office into any disrepute. And, Mr. Speaker, for the 2 years, no accusation was leveled against me, Mr. Speaker, of any kind on matters of integrity. I carried myself with honor. I abhorred acts of corruption. I managed to lead and remove some of our staff, Mr. Speaker, in some of the agencies, including Kenya Rural Roads Authority, that had become Mr. Speaker, difficult for my predecessor to remove them because of acts of corruption. And, Mr. Speaker, in terms of delivery, Mr. Speaker, despite the difficult situation we found ourselves with pending bills, we were able to work together as a team with all the roads agencies to deliver about 1,000 kilometers of tarmac roads, both new roads and, Mr. Speaker, the ones that were being reconstructed. All of these roads are in small bits and pieces. You'll find one like Thika Magumu in Kiambu, or the road from Mtwapa to Kilifi, or the road from Kwanjumbu, Mariakani, or Masera Sori in Homa Bay, or the towns of Embu, Kericho, Bungoma, and other towns in the country. Cumulatively, Mr. Speaker, we did about 1,000 kilometers of roads, despite the difficulties we had with the budget. Mr. Speaker, on the part of development funds, I reorganized, Mr. Speaker, and pushed for the contracts that had been delayed for construction of the roads from Isiolo to Wajir to Mandera. And now, Mr. Speaker, all the contracts have been awarded under the African Development Bank and World Bank funding projects, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also led the process of ensuring that, Mr. Speaker, we get funds for our roads. Remember, when I came here, we had a huge pending bill, and it was very difficult for us to solve that issue. His Excellency the President gave me the opportunity to travel to China to work with our development partners, and through my efforts, Mr. Speaker, and collective efforts of the team in government, I managed to raise 37 billion shillings from the China Development Bank to support about 15 roads that, Mr. Speaker, gladly, unfortunately, I didn't live to see its completion, but they are commencing, Mr. Speaker, from the month of August. Mr. Speaker, beside that, I also pushed for the resources to construct the intelligent traffic system. I promised when I came for vetting here. Now the intelligent traffic system has been advertised. 221 junctions are going to be fixed in the Nairobi city, Mr. Speaker, for that technology. I led the process also of PPPs. For the road from Mombasa to Nairobi, the American government, American investor, Mr. Speaker, has made a proposal, and that proposal is ongoing because we have facilitated them. Mr. Speaker, we had a problem with the Rironi Mau Summit, one of the most popular cases. There was an existing contract that I took a step of courage, Mr. Speaker, to mutually terminate. And, Mr. Speaker, we should be able, as the President promised, also to advertise after September, when the mutual termination period is over, so that we get a contractor by January next year. Mr. Speaker, in the road sector also, I'd like to say that, Mr. Speaker, we have done a commendable job to raise resources. My last act in that office, Mr. Speaker, was to make sure that we get resources for maintaining our roads. When I came to Parliament several times, because these questions were asked, I appraised the country that we have what we call orphaned roads. And these roads are, especially in Kenya, rural roads, and they needed significant resources. Our demand per year for maintaining the roads is 150 billion, Mr. Speaker, yet we only raised 84 billion. This year, I took the significant step did the public participation, and eventually we were able to increase the road maintenance levy by 7 shillings, working together with the petroleum sector to make sure that that increase did not make the cost of petroleum higher than it is. If it is something significant I'm leaving back in this ministry for the benefit of the honorable members who are here, we shall be having now constituency roads management having at least 100 million shillings in every constituency, up from 62 million in the last financial year. And we should be able to fix the problems that we have in our roads. That needed leadership, needed boldness, Mr. Speaker, to make that significant contribution. Mr. Speaker, it wasn't just the road sector that I superintended upon. There was also the transport sector. We did a lot in the port. Mr. Speaker, we were able to increase the efficiency of the port by 12%. We handled 1.6 million TEUs of cargo, up from 1.4. And this year, Mr. Speaker, we are going to handle 2 million TEUs. In also that sector, Mr. Speaker, we have increased investment, especially in Lake Victoria. Now the oil transport that I saw Honorable Wandai speaking about, now fuel is being transported across Lake Victoria. You don't need to burden the roads across to Uganda. Mr. Speaker, we are also building piers in Kisumu and also getting a ferry from Fangano Island. Some of those investments, Mr. Speaker, were based on the things we did. In the Lapsset corridor, for the first time, the Lamu port was able to handle significant cargo, 60 million metric tons of fertilizer destined towards Ethiopia, based on our diplomatic work within the Lapsset corridor. Now Lapsset corridor is functioning. The road from Lamu to Ijara, Mr. Speaker, which was a Maram road, we made sure that we fixed that problem. Now a tarmac road is being constructed. It's on the way. We have up to February next year to make sure that that tarmac road is delivered to Ijara, and the road from Ijara to Isiolo is also ongoing, Mr. Speaker. I look forward within next year that the Lapsset corridor will be completed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also did some work at the airport. You remember that when I arrived, the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport was a place of shame. All the airports do not have a maintenance policy. Mr. Speaker, after fixing the human resource, we made sure also we fixes the maintenance policy. Now we've been able to fix Jomo Kenyatta International Airport drainage system. We've also been dealt with the roofing, and Mr. Speaker, there is a progress in that direction. We've also fixed, Mr. Speaker, many of the other airports. There was a lighting problem in Eldoret. Wilson Airport, for many of us who are here who've used the Wilson Airport, you know that it's full of potholes and bumps, Mr. Speaker. Now we have awarded the contract to make sure that the aprons and the runway is redone afresh, because Wilson Airport is among the busiest airports in the continent, Mr. Speaker. Even as we did that, we completed also contracts that were pending for our airstrips in Anyuki, airstrip in Nakuru now are ongoing. We finished the Matulo airstrip, Mr. Speaker. We opened new routes for airlines to go to Kabundo in Homa Bay. We did in Migori, Mr. Speaker. We did also new route to Kakamega. Mr. Speaker, now our airspace is booming. I opened doors, Mr. Speaker, for new airlines. We have Fly Dubai now flying to Mombasa. Air Indigo is now flying directly from India to Nairobi. And one of my last also responsibilities was to grant Etihad a flight to come back to Nairobi. All this is done balancing, Mr. Speaker, with the interest of the Kenya, Mr. Speaker, Kenya Airways. Even that, Mr. Speaker, is just a tip of the things we have succeeded to do. Let me just say the last one, Mr. Speaker, is the. You know, I left the minister abruptly, so this is an opportunity to share. And I just in 2 more minutes, Mr. Speaker, is to say that in the railway sector, we've done a very good job to revamp the commuter rail system in the city of Nairobi, increasing the 10 stations in the city. We significantly pushed the Kumi program of the World Bank, which will give us 60 billion shillings to revamp the commuter rail system in the city. And Mr. Speaker, that will also lead to increasing the stations and therefore significantly reduce climate impact in the city and pollution, because we will be using mass transit of the railway. Mr. Speaker, we have done so also by connecting Mombasa to Miritini itself, and we are doing a construction of Riruta, Mr. Speaker, all the way to Ngong, and hopefully then to Rongai, so that then we can significantly move our people using commuter rail. I was in the process of getting funding, working together with private sector and Ugandan government to make sure that we extend the railway from Naivasha to Kampala. I believe that my successor, the person who comes after me, my successor, Mr. Speaker, will continue from where we left insofar as that is concerned. There's so many other things we've done in the transport sector, in the Namata. All these will be now factors of history, and we shall have the time to be able to share. So I just want to say this, Mr. Speaker, that even as we accuse the government, and there is a general accusation across board that we've not done the communication, unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, no matter how much we try to publicize these great things we have done, it is trounced by criticism and predetermined programming, Mr. Speaker, to label certain people as a failure. I have worked passionately, committed to deliver my work, working sometimes up to midnight, Mr. Speaker, and this is a job I look back and say the last 2 years have been exciting for me, and I look forward to also taking the same energy and vigor to the next ministry. Mr. Speaker, the vision I have for the young people of this republic, there are many people who have asked themselves that, why Murkomen? Why is he being put here? I believe that, Mr. Speaker, the president carefully chose me because of my energy, my commitment, my passion, and my history with young people. Mr. Speaker, I do a lot of mentorship across the country, even when I was in the Ministry of Roads and Transport. Mr. Speaker, I ran a tournament, support a tournament, Mr. Speaker, that runs in about 5 counties, and we were moving to the 6th county in the Kerio Valley region, which uses sports, and for that reason, it was football last year, to bring warring communities together, the Pokots, the Marakwets, the Turkana, the Samburus, Mr. Speaker, the people of Tugen, to bring them together to play together. And last year, as a result of that tournament, for the first time, we had an opportunity. Some leaders from Turkana got the first time to be in Kabenguria when we were playing football, and I was really surprised. And that way, sports, Mr. Speaker, is also one way of bringing people together. I have a passion for the young people, and I believe that that passion is going to be translated to action, Mr. Speaker, once I assume office. And that passion is to sort the problems that are bedeviling our young people. The problem of unemployment, Mr. Speaker. The problem of our sports sector, the way it's mismanaged, Mr. Speaker. And many other issues that I hope we will delve into.
That will
because my teacher, Honorable Gladys Boshole, has asked a very wide question. If I'm left to answer, Mr. Speaker,
I want to narrow you down now to
yes, I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
the much you have said, and said it well. Majority Leader?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Going forward now, we answer questions directly.
Honorable Speaker, allow me to start with a question on FIFA. CS nominee FKF received a letter from FIFA in March threatening suspension following a litany of court cases bedeviling the Kenyan Federation. And to date, FKF has not held their AGM, nor released an election roadmap. If you get the opportunity to serve in this ministry or don't want to hear what you intend to do, I do know you're a football fan, but the teams that you support are not Kenyan teams, at least the ones I see you online supporting. What will you do to make sure that our football gets back its glory, and at least Kenyans can be watching our Premier League the way they watch the English Premier League? 2, you have clearly put out your report card for the time that you are the Ministry of Roads and Infrastructure. I remember a year ago, you appeared in Parliament and promised Parliament and the people of Kenya that you would be exploring PPP as a model, an alternative model of financing huge infrastructural projects. I do know there was some work on Adani at the airport. Would want to hear whether this is the Kipchumba Murkomen who has been accused on social media of selling, in quotes, our airport? Did you or did you not sell our airport? And who did you sell to?
Take Junet as well.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
I have taken note that the CS nominee, last time we vetted him here under your chairmanship. And I've seen he has just come with the same suit that he came with that time. I have the picture with me here in my phone, Mr. Speaker. I was waiting for a different one.
It's the same suit.
The same suit and the same tie. I was looking for something else.
Maybe that's his attire of luck.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, Mr. Speaker. Maybe the people who live in the valleys of Elgeyo Marakwet told him, if you want to get approval, just take that suit and that tie. Yes. Anyway, Mr. Speaker, the question I want to ask him is that one is about this Ministry of Sports. I wanted to ask him that about protection and growth of local content. What measures will you take to protect Kenyan artists from plagiarism? Then how is the government going to assist local artists, local creatives, in achieving 60% of content for local broadcast? How will you ensure that all Kenyans, including those who do not have access to TV, can consume our local content? How will you achieve that? And lastly, Waziri, from your previous office, please put it very clear to this committee. What is this matter of Adani and Jomo Kenyatta Airport? When did you travel to India? Whom did you go? What is the content of the letter? Everything. We want to know whether the Jomo Kenyatta Airport is still Kenyan Airport or it is now Mumbai International Airport. Please.
Yes, nominee.
Mr. Chair, as a matter of fact, what...
You either refer to me as chairman or speaker. I'm not a chair. I'm sitting on one.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
The chairperson or chairman.
Yes.
Why don't you like chairperson, Mr. Speaker? Because you don't want to give room for agenda. Yes. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
If I say this, I will offend you and other people. I am an ardent fan. Contrary to what Mr. Kimani Ichung'wah said, I am a serious fan of Gor Mahia. I used to. Does
that offend me?
Because
you are a fan.
I suspect you are AFC.
I'm a fan of Arsenal. No, my local team is AFC.
On a light note, I used to. On Saturdays in the St. Patrick's High School, we used to be allowed to get out of school. So we used to sneak from Iten all the way to Eldoret to watch Gor Mahia play KCC. And I was really used to be thrilled. So I've been a Gor Mahia fan for a long period of time. Besides that, in UK, I support Manchester, and in Spain, I support Real Madrid. Mr. Speaker, sports is for fun. And Mr. Speaker, I agree with Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah. Those days when we used to support Gor Mahia, AFC, and all the other teams, Shabana, among others, KCC, we even used to know all the players, up to the reserve team. Now, Mr. Speaker, I don't even know our Gor Mahia players, who they are, even when they change. Why? Because the standard of football has gone down over time. It is a paradox because access to media has increased. Meanwhile, the accessing sports and publicity of sport and standard of sports has gone down. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, I agree with Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah that the place that has to start is, Mr. Speaker, football, sports management, and for this purpose, FKF. Mr. Speaker, it is not right that for the last 8 years, you have an organization that has a leadership in office that has not been elected, but they are there in perpetuity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's not just FKF, it's AK. AK has been there for 12 years without an election. Cricket Association, the same. Badminton, the same. Mr. Speaker, for swimming, the same. There is a problem, a serious problem, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to sports management in this country. And Mr. Speaker, what is also worse is that there is a collaboration. And unfortunately, as an officer of the court, I have to say this. There is a collaboration between these organizations and, Mr. Speaker, court orders. If you find why the AK has never held elections for 12 years, it's because they are perpetuating themselves using a court order. That is the same way the FKF is perpetuating itself along a court order. Mr. Speaker, the first thing I will do is to make sure that we bring all the stakeholders, and Mr. Speaker, I promise I'll do that within the next 1 month, all the stakeholders in different sectors of sports to make sure that we have a conversation on how to turn around these sports. Number two, Mr. Speaker, I would like, and I hope the Chief Justice is watching me, or even if she's not watching me, she'll be told. I'd like to have a meeting with the Chief Justice, Mr. Speaker, should I be approved, to discuss with the Chief Justice how they will expeditiously make decisions in relation to, Mr. Speaker, elections and officials of sports associations. Mr. Speaker, the Chief Justice and our judges must understand that they are blocking young people from accessing opportunities, Mr. Speaker. The third issue, Mr. Speaker, is that I am going to request those people who have served for more than 8 years in any federation, Mr. Speaker, to recuse themselves and give an opportunity to new people who have energy and vigor to be elected, Mr. Speaker, to make sure that they take over these associations. The last thing, Mr. Speaker, I'll say on that point is
they will never recuse themselves.
I know.
Just restructure the constitution.
I'm coming to the next one.
Give them 2 terms, non-renewable. After 2 terms, 3 years, 4 years, they finish, they go.
Together. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Murkomen, many Kenyans think that you have actually been taken to the right place because you come from a county of home of champions, exactly. So I think many people are seeing that, including myself. But my question, Honorable Murkomen, is there is a gap. And again, people think the Minister for Sports is Minister of Nairobi, you know. So they think that it's Minister of Nairobi. There's nothing on the ground. So if you get the favor of House and you become the Minister, Honorable Murkomen, what will you do to bring the nexus between the national office, your office at national level, and the county, so that people in sub-locations or locations can actually feel that the Minister of Sport is their minister? You know, is there any way where good people or good sport people, and particularly maybe football, can win in that sub-location or location and be taken through, so that at least they can also feel like they're also national people, so that they don't see the Minister for Sports as only Minister for Nairobi? Thank you.
Vicarian.
Thank you, Chairman. Mine is just to, I'm just hoping that the nominee will crack the whip at FKF. Honorable Chairman, yes, and he has to, Honorable Chairman. I remember one day, 142 million was paid to some English company to procure the broadcasting van, which never arrived in the country. And after paying, we were told that the company that was given that money went into insolvency. So I think it is important for us to crack. But my question is, the nominee, my friend Murkomen, one of the best strikers in the Bunge Football Club, is football and talent was created at the youth centers, at the location and sub-location, then districts at those days, either sponsored by, in collaboration with, partnership with either Germany, Netherlands, and England. I don't know whether there's a policy for you to bring back, because when you talk about football, people think of Harambee Stars and AFC and Gor Mahia, but these players come from some place. So what policy is there to revamp the youth centers' sports, not only for football, but sports in general? Thank you, Chairman.
Can I answer those 3, nominee?
Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Koech has talked about infrastructure. We have a number of pending stadia that needs to be completed. That includes, Mr. Speaker, Kapkatet Stadium in his county. It includes also, Mr. Speaker, the Wote Stadium in Makueni. It also includes the Kamarin, the famous Kamarin Stadium, Mr. Speaker, in Iten. In fact, I was so embarrassed. I'm sure most of you have seen this documentary in CNN, which has been run in the last 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's now Kamarin is a monument of shame, because the athletes there are complaining about the infrastructure, and the journalists are showing how how the Cameroon has become what it is. Mr. Speaker, I have been briefed already, Mr. Speaker, in the process of preparing myself for this confirmation hearing, that some of the processes are ongoing in terms of delivering the infrastructure. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that the President has already given direction that sports fund should be wholly supporting the sports activities, and one of which is delivery of infrastructure. I will make sure that, unfortunately, I'm being followed by the problem of pending bills all the way to sports infrastructure, but we'll make sure that we structure the sports fund in such a way that we'll deliver our infrastructure. We need to complete Bugungu Stadium, Mr. Speaker, in Bungoma. We need to complete the stadium, Mr. Speaker, in Bungoma.
Masinde Muliro.
Masinde Muliro, yes. I was confusing with the one in
Buhungu is also installed.
Yes, installed, but the main one was to make sure that Masinde Muliro is covered properly and completed. The one is Kericho is completed because we built it recently because of these Madaraka issues. We are going to do a Kwale one. It must be also up to standard, but also all the other stadiums, Mr. Speaker, that are still pending will be completed to standard.
Speaker, also Udaya Stadium and Ruringu Stadium.
Ruringu and Udaya, Mr. Speaker, have also, especially Ruringu is in advanced stage. We'll make sure that we complete and restructure it. It is part of the stadiums, Mr. Speaker, that are going to be used in African Cup of Nations for training, and we will make sure that we deal with that. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of, so the infrastructure is very important. The second thing is, Mr. Speaker, it's not just enough to do infrastructure. The government must invest in the training itself, in identification of talent, and I'll marry this with the question of Honorable Kikaria. We will use the Kenya Academy of Sports to make sure that we establish training centers in at least all the counties, Mr. Speaker, where we are identify talent are trained. We will work also with the schools. Schools are better placed to help us to identify the talent. There's some of our footballers like Adrian, Mr. Speaker, who are picked last year to go to Spain, who are, as a result of sports championship in high school and in primary school. We will make sure that we work with them. In fact, one of the issues that I need to explore is to make sure that the Kenya Academy of Sports are going to train all the teachers who are coaches across the country. And not just training, they must also be certified, so that that certification is going to be recognized in their promotion. So that we need to use the teachers who are already in schools to make sure that we develop. That is really what is bottom up in terms of sports. Mr. Speaker, just to mention the Karenga Stadium in passing, as has been asked by Honorable Nelson, airstrip. It is true that we established and built Karenga airstrip for purpose at that point in time to facilitate the travel insofar as the Madaraka Day was concerned. However, we had promised the people of Kericho that we will do a world-class airport there, and we needed land. Even when we built the airstrip, the land did not belong to the government of Kenya. It's still being owned by the private company that owns the tea farm. And the negotiations are in advanced stage, Mr. Speaker. I believe we have, that we will succeed to get, they had offered about 20 acres, but I said, it will be useful to get at least 100 acres in that place so that we build an airstrip properly with a proper terminal, Mr. Speaker, to serve the people of Kericho. The money had already been set aside by Kenya Airports Authority. Some of the money that was allocated at that time, part of it has been used, part has been left to complete the negotiations. I have no doubt in my mind that my successor will deliver Karenga airstrip, Mr. Speaker, in the fullness of time. Had I been given a bit of more time in the same ministry, I had no doubt that within the next 1 year, we were going to be able to deliver the Karenga airstrip. Not just Karenga airstrip, many other airstrips across the country that the people of Kenya are demanding, because we want to make travel become bottom-up, cheaper, and our country accessible, including the plans we had in Moyale and Marsabit County and a number of the airstrips, Mr. Speaker. I agree with Honorable Kosing. Honorable Kosing's county produces some of the best athletes in the country. Mr. Speaker, you know, Honorable Kosing and I come from the same area. Leland area produces some of the best athletes, world beaters. But, Mr. Speaker, the facilities are not there. There's a place that border both of us, they have a small training camp. There's also another training camp in Kapengura, among other places. But, Mr. Speaker, most of those camps are owned by private people, and they're very small. Mr. Speaker,
The first gap is that Sports Act does not recognize counties else anywhere. That is why we must review Sports Act immediately to make sure that even as national government set standards and do some of the sports functions, the county governments are given, have a partnership with national government insofar as implementation. Mr. Speaker, we also need to make sure that sports development, the grassroots, the same question that had been asked by Honorable Kikaria and Honorable Nelson, that we need to make sure that through Academy of Sports, we are identifying talent very early and mark them to be taken to specific areas of training so that we can succeed. In fact, the other thing that we must do is to make sure that even as athletes prepare for their sports, they should not leave their education. There is a serious gap, especially in athletics, Mr. Speaker, where many of the athletes, once they go to running, they are told, concentrate on running. Yet when we go to rugby, you have graduates with master's degree and they still succeed in rugby sevens and their rugby career. So it's just an attitude of how we fashioned the athletics. We need to make sure also we support their education. And to follow what Honorable Kikaria said, we need also to deal with these investments. We need to attract more people to establish academies in the country, sports academies. I know the international schools have very good facilities for training young people. We need also that to be affordable to the people at the bottom of the pyramid by making sure that we support investors who can come from out of the country to do what used to be done in Mathare and other areas to using, Mr. Speaker, establishment of academies. Mr. Speaker, the last thing I'd like to say is that Honorable Kikaria spoke about the 142 million van and the all problems that we have in this sector. Mr. Speaker, corruption is a big issue in this. You already covered that. Yes, I'm just saying that, just as he said, we are going to be able to deal with the issue of corruption head on.
A forensic audit.
Yes, Mr.
On
Speaker.
how much money international organizations have been sending to these institutions.
It is so ordered, Mr. Speaker. You have ordered.
Mary.
Thank you. You've touched on sports academies. Honorable Nominee, 31 academies of sports are earmarked to commence this financial year, 24-25. They were advertised, but again cancelled. Honorable Nominee, we are at a time when Kenyans are tired of too much talking. Kenyans want to see action, not what has been witnessed, PR, managing of members and representatives of the people. I want you to tell Kenyans, if you succeed in this nomination to the ministry, how long will it take you to advertise for the commencement of the sports academies? And these academies are being funded by the sports fund. I happen to be a member in that committee. And you have said that it is possible to get partnerships even to support that endeavor. So tell Kenyans when we will see the sports academies commence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To Honorable Murkomen, we've worked with him in this Transport Committee, and I want to ask him, you have talked about the Jan 2025 and 2027, but I didn't hear you mention anything about the stadium in Meru being used, because the stadium was done for over R1 billion shillings, and already it has not been even handed over. The running track is coming out. And the youth who come to leagues, they spend over R1 million shillings just in courses run by FKF for training and all that. But in return, they do not get anything. And then they pay 60,000 to join leagues. And after joining leagues, they have to pay to use the stadium, 15,000 shillings. And I believe it's all over. So my question to you, Honorable Murkomen, is what are you going to do about the youth? It's not just football. It's all sports which we need the youth to be involved. And as well, the same Sports Kenya, which did Meru Kinoru Stadium, and it's a very big stadium, I believe you've been there, demolished our police station in the stadium, demolished the ACC's office, and promised to give 42 million to build new ones, where your two predecessors, if you are confirmed, Honorable Ambassador Amina, she ignored it. Honorable Ababu Mamba, when he came to Parliament, he says, yes, as soon as funds are available, he will give. So I want to know from you if that one for Kinoru, what you will do. And we've got even another stadium in Maua, which is waterlogged. We've got another one in Kobo, it's not there, and in Timau, and many other places.
You are making a speech. Yes, yes, Murugara.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nominee, talk about Standia. The Chuka Stadium is also not complete. Talk about your previous ministry of roads. Tharaka Nithi is the home of stored roads, the most ugly of them all, including Chakariga Marimanti. You need to comment on that one. Then a comment on how you fed sports persons, because I had a young man who actually went all the way to Rwanda on the high jump, came back. I pleaded with your predecessor to meet him and fed him the PSC sports. I received the cold shoulders and nobody did any of that. What is the policy you're likely to have as regards the vetting of sports persons? Young people, actors or artists, they are occupying us because they're not happy. They are doing all this work, but their royalties are not being paid. What are you likely to do about improvement on payment of royalties for these artists, including what benefit Kenya gets from all these nice movies we see internationally with the animal world, National Geographic, animal films, wildlife? What benefit does Kenya get from all this? Because this is where we should be selling our property and receiving payment for. Thank you.
Nominee, answer those three.
Mr. Speaker, again, I'll try to summarize. On the Honorable Daud Chan, 2025, yes, we are prepared, and I would love to get a brief whether Kinoru Stadium is one of the beneficiaries in terms of either training or playing. I know, of course, Kinoru Stadium. I've even addressed a rally there, the famous rally before. And you speak to the same things I talked about. I told you about standards. A county starts a stadium, they build. Sometimes it is a money-minting project. There is no intention to complete, or even it's completed, it is shoddy. It is not just Kinoru alone. All the stadium across the country. There was the case of Kericho. They finished it and it was coming out. Machakos the same. There were many other places across the country. That is why it's important to put in place standards that you can measure against, so that if you don't achieve those standards, it is easy to even prosecute the contractor, because there is international standard adopted local. And I promise you, that will be my greatest priority. And I hope I can do that within 3 months, because I have had a conversation and bring it to this house so that this parliament and parliament can be able to pass regulations that will make sure that standards of sports facilities are adhered to. I also want to say that on the question of your demolished DCC office and the chief's office, if I look at the money you're asking, that if we speak, if also Honorable Kindiki is approved, this government is one government. We can tell Interior, please find other resources, because we are straining insofar as completing the infrastructure, find other resources and build a DCC office. And Honorable Kindiki is not just your neighbor, is your friend. So we can be able to sort that issue, God willing. The third issue is that on the Chuka Stadium, I think also I was briefed that it's not yet complete. We need to just make sure that we complete now within the standards, with the required standards, so that we don't also complete hurriedly, but in a shoddy manner. Sorry for Chakarika Marimanti. You know, it's my pet subject. I was there with your senator then to launch it in 2014. And the biggest problem as our country, and I pity my successor in this sense, that you have a pending bill of about 165 billion for road construction. I don't know what we are going to do, because this is not just a ministry problem, it's also a budgetary problem. And when I see that Finance Act failed, and then the other Finance Act is also facing challenges to another gap of another 200 billion. I think we need to be serious as a country. If we really want this infrastructure, we must be able to raise our own resources and support the infrastructure sector. Unfortunately, or fortunately, our honorable member here, if he's approved, will be the Minister of Finance. I hope he will be able to solve that problems, because he also has tolled roads in the Sori Road in Homa Bay. In Migori, in Homa Bay, sorry. Mr. Speaker, on the question of the particular student, I will be very deliberate, very personal to solve individual problems. I know athletics, you can have, do you know there are countries that travel with only one athlete? You know, the whole federation goes with one athlete.
Mozambique did so in more than 4 Olympics.
Yes, so we are lucky as a country.
She always came back with a gold medal.
Yes, Maria Mutola, yes, 800 meters. So, Mr. Speaker, we can be able to make sure that we meet that person individually. They are very important. By the time they are reaching that level, I am ready to meet them within the first 1 week when I go to office. And George, being my senior honorable, should be able to bring them.
You know, the nominee has been responding like he has already been approved. He's just said, when I go to office, he is not used the word if at all.
I have used so many times.
Hearing him say, if I'm approved.
Yes. Should I be approved if I am approved, Mr. Speaker?
I think Mr. Speaker, go at you.
There is a problem with the royalties issues, Mr. Speaker, for our musicians and performing arts. Mr. Speaker, that responsibility, it's very important that we sort out corruption in the CMOs. The people who have been given the contract to collect, we should not give them a free hand to collect and distribute without government having a view of what, Mr. Speaker, is being collected. And I think this is an issue Parliament should take up seriously. I know it's not in it will not be in the ministry that I have been proposed to. It is in the arts and culture, in the gender ministry, but it is something that I have been following personally. And I hope that KECOBO, the Kenya Copyright Board, will be a bit more serious. There is a lot of corruption-related issues have been raised insofar as identification of the CMOs and, Mr. Speaker, distribution of those resources. People must be able to earn from their sweat, Mr. Speaker, and I hope they will be supported. On the film industry, I know it's part of creative industry in the ministry that I have been proposed to serve if I am approved. Mr. Speaker, I have been told that the law that governs this sector is a 1963 law. Mr. Speaker, the association itself and the policy is also an old policy. Again, I have received a representation by many people who say, if you are approved, please organize the first meeting. I am even told that insofar as filming our wildlife, the preference goes to foreign filming companies that come to film, and the local companies here do not get access to the, and they're getting billions of money, Mr. Speaker. There is no accountability or transparency as to how much they are able to live in our country. This is an area that we must register all the filmmakers when they come to our country, but we must also facilitate our own filmmakers to be able to benefit from our own animals, Mr. Speaker, in our national parks and game reserves. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Owen. One question, followed by Robert, one question, Mule, one question, Raso, one question.
My one question, Honorable Speaker. In
that order.
Kipchumba Murkomen, you're my good friend, you know, but that notwithstanding.
Causing with the nominee.
Okay, I said notwithstanding. You know, you've mentioned stadia all over Kenya, but you've not mentioned any in the North Coast. Unfortunately, this government has never invested anything in the North Coast in terms of stadia. And you know, the coast in its own would be a very good place for sports. Even parliamentary games are coming to Coast, but where will they play? You know, because we have no. So as you take, if you are given this opportunity, would you consider investing in stadia in the lower coast to promote the youth there, where there's immense talent in terms of football and other things, but it has never been tapped because of lack of infrastructure? I thank you.
Robert?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nominee, I just want to mention one thing that I've heard you mention here about growing talents from schools. Maybe one of the reasons that this fails is because the capitation given for activities in school is totally inadequate, and that is under the Ministry of Education. So maybe you can talk to your counterpart, if approved. Just one question. We've seen delegations going for sports activities, international sports activities, where the officials, that is government, officers, carry huge delegations and, are living lavishly. Whereas the athletes and players are actually sometimes even stranded at airports. Can you tell Kenyans what you will do so that this kind of situation that embarrasses this country does not recur?
Mule?
Thank you very much, Speaker. Nominee Murkomen. If you are proved by this House to be the seers of youth, creative economy, sports, I just want to look at the youth right now who are part and parcel of you, because I've seen your CV, you are part of Millennium. And then the army you have talked about, cogency. What new programs you will bring on board to accommodate them to work with you in this ministry?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Murkomen, my issue is about land for sports. If you move around Kenya, you find a lot of development. And even when you go around our counties and constituencies, we want to grow the talent of youth in either athletics or even other sports, that is rugby, football, hockey. But there are no pitches. People build everything, and then the youth, sometimes they play on the road. So going forward, I want to ask you if you will come up with even a cabinet paper or a white paper to suggest that counties or even constituencies must put so much land available so that you can develop pitches, small stadia, not necessarily the big stadiums that will cost a lot of money. And finally, Marsabit and other projects that are actually behind schedule have closed out youth, because those stadiums cannot be used because they are under construction. Partially they are developed, and those structures, if they are going to be used, might collapse and cause unnecessary deaths. Maybe you can comment on that. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Answer those, Nominee.
Mr. Speaker, starting with Honorable Owen, there is marginalization of a number of regions, especially the ASAL areas, when it comes to stadia. Mr. Speaker, I agree with Honorable Owen.
Kilifi is not ASAL?
It is. Part of Kilifi is ASAL, Mr. Speaker.
Not ASAL.
Okay. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, in the northern part of the coast, there was already a proposal that Shanzu should have a big stadium, and that proposal is ongoing. It was even meant to be part of the African Cup of Nations preparation, but Mr. Speaker will follow up. But also in Kilifi itself, we need to work together to make sure we achieve this. I think the key thing is, let's have an updated sports policy that says what is the standard of a stadium you have in a county, and which other pitches, including community training grounds, can be established, so that then, and which are going to be done by counties, and what can be done by national government. And even after they have been constructed, what is the maintenance policy? Who is going to maintain? I think that once we have that policy, we have a way of sustaining those facilities. And Mr. Speaker, I totally agree with Honorable Mbui that the capitation, the problem is that we consider physical education, sports, Mr. Speaker, as a luxury, as an additional activity which can be done or not be done. We forget that that can be the quickest way of developing our people. Mr. Speaker, I think we need to have a serious conversation with the Ministry of Education to make sure that we support sports activities deliberately. Luckily, the Sports Fund has been supporting sports activities like the National Football Championship. Sports Fund has been chipping in, but we need a structured way. In fact, in some countries, the Ministry of Sports would be combined together with education as one ministry, with one department being the sports, for structured working relationship between the two departments. And I think even without that being structured to be one ministry, we need to work together with one government to see how sports is going to, how we are going to use our education institutions. By the way, I saw yesterday a number of Olympic winners, swimming and so forth, are in various schools in Europe. They keep, the commentator is saying, oh, this one has gone to this school in Europe, that has gone to this school in Europe, this is a student in this university. This should be the case. Schools and the university should be the breeding ground for our talents, and that is where they should be located. Mr. Speaker, on the delegation going to international sports, I think that my ministry will take, if I am approved, Mr. Speaker, my office will take a serious, Mr. Speaker, concerned and make sure that we follow through the list of the people who are traveling, so that essential people can only travel. And if there are extra people who want to travel at their own cost, there is no problem. I also very careful not to call people joyriders, because I saw a friend of mine was being accused of having gone to Paris with their daughter, only to find out that he didn't travel using public money and the daughter didn't travel using public money. So sometimes we must get the facts. Usually MPs...
The most offensive one was when people called Kipchoge Keino a joyrider to Rio. It is the father of our athletics. In fact, if you are confirmed, you should guarantee this country to buy Keino a ticket to go to every Olympics until he gives up.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. What people don't realize also is that some of the officials go to the Olympics not to just go and watch. That is where you are scouting for potential investors in the area and partnerships. So there are people who go with specific roles to ensure that you engage in improving and getting investors. Some of the members of parliament also travel to these international games because they provide their oversight responsibility, but also they appreciate what's happening. When they come back here, they are able also to pass necessary laws and support the budgets for those athletes. So it is not always obvious, rather obvious, that everybody is a joyrider, but we will make sure that there are no joyriders using public resources. Remember also, Mr. Speaker, that some countries pay for their funds. They pay for the people who are going, the cheering squad. But Mr. Speaker, because of our limitation of resources, we need to work with the private sector. The private sector to sponsor them. Our big corporations should be able to sponsor the people who are going to cheer our teams, because it's also important to go with a cheering squad if it's necessary. Mr. Speaker, on the question of Honorable Mule, I am very happy that he is asking a very pertinent question. In the youth sector, what am I going to do differently to make sure that our youth get jobs? First, let me say this, Mr. Speaker. It's an embarrassment that as a country, and this should collectively prick our conscience, that the budget for youth department, for core functions of the youth department, for an entire year is 51 million shillings. That is a shame, Mr. Speaker. In fact, when I was looking at the budget, I was asking myself, am I being set up to just go and sit in an office where you are not going to deliver anything to the youth of this country? How you budget is demonstrating your priorities, because if you really want to sort out youth issues, we must put resources for youth resources. You will remember, Mr. Speaker, after the post-election violence, is when a serious discussion, and you were part of the negotiating team for the coalition government and for peace. You remember one of the discussions was, what are we going to do with the youth? And that's how Mzee Kibaki's government came up with Youth Fund, and they came up also with National Youth Council, and they came up with all those youth initiatives. You remember, Mr. Speaker, the youth ministry at that time had about 10 billion for implementing projects. Now the youth department has 51 million shillings. What happened to us? Because in 2013, when we lumped together the youth ministry with public service, the whole resources were channeled to National Youth Service. And then we forgot about the other core functions that are affecting the youth. This department has moved with 8 PSS within 10 years, Mr. Speaker. And so it has not had a proper institutional memory of implementation. Mr. Speaker, that is one area that we must fix the resources. Number 2, there is a program, luckily, Mr. Speaker, that is supported by the World Bank, that's called Nyota. Its intention is to make sure that it reaches 19 years old up to 28 who have not gone past Form 4 in terms of recognition of their skills, improving of their skills, and attaching them to a specific work environment, and thereafter supporting some of them to do businesses. Mr. Speaker, that program is huge. It's about 20-something billion shillings in 5 years. I am going to be prudent in terms of managing and making sure that it achieves the objective of reaching 800,000 young people across the country. I ask members of parliament that we work together to make sure that the identification of the beneficiaries is per constituency, because the constituencies are the most equitable units at the country. The other thing, Mr. Speaker, we must do, and I was prepared to do that in the roads ministry, we must do what President Roosevelt did. After the Great Depression, between 1933 and 1938, President Roosevelt came up with something called the New Deal. The New Deal was to work on deliberate mechanism of finding jobs through government projects for young people. And the plan was to make sure that when they were building the beltways, the airports, the postal corporations, the bridges, they made sure that they infused in the contracts the number of young people that are going to be employed. I will suggest, Mr. Speaker, that in our road contracts, if you give a contractor, say, 100 million worth of a contract, we must tell that contractor, infused in this contract, you will employ 100 youth in that locality for 3 years. And we must be deliberate, even if it means adding the amount to the contract of and above. If we do that, Mr. Speaker, in railway contracts, in the port contracts, the airport contracts, road contracts, we are going to deliberately deal with the people of Kenya. If we are going to give out contracts to everybody to maximize profit, those people will use machines. What has happened, Mr. Speaker, in places like Kericho? Because of the introduction of machines, there are so many jobless young people in Kericho and other places like Limuru and other tea growing areas. We must tamper the need for profit by deliberately getting a new deal for young people in this country that are going to get jobs directly. The last thing I want to say is that there are fragmented initiatives that target young people. You will find that the AGPO, the program that is ensuring that contracts go to young people, is being managed by Treasury. There, the Treasury only see the registration of the company as a young person. They don't even realize that this young person is just a facade. You have another initiative in ICT that is called Ajira. You have another initiative in Public Service Commission that is called internship. So all these initiatives are fragmented. What we are going to do in the Ministry of Youth, if I'm approved, is to make sure that there is a oversight. These all initiatives across ministries are going to be reported to the Ministry of Youth so that we can collect them and we make sure the oversight and make sure that we force all government ministries, departments and agencies to make sure in their performance contracting they report annually how many youth are benefited from the programs and with clear statistics of where the youth are found. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of Honorable Raso, I agree with him that we need to establish, and again it goes to the policy, that what kind of study are you going to build in different parts of the country, and we must make sure that is why the absence here is the disjointed relationship between the national government and county government, because there is no intergovernmental framework under the law that makes sure that we work together to establish those community training grounds and the issue of stadium. The issue of Marsabit Stadium, Mr. Speaker, I will make sure that I follow up personally. I was really wishing to go to Marsabit as a Minister of Roads and Transport because we have some airstrips we were working on there, and also we are open to the Lapsset corridor. We want to put ICD there. So, Mr. Speaker, I will go now. I will go now, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of this ministry, if I'm approved, to make sure that the stadium is complete.
We want you to shift your heart from roads to youth and sports if you are confirmed.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but as a cabinet secretary, you still have the responsibility of supporting
I know there is
the rest of
collective
government.
responsibility, but don't live in nostalgia. Let's have now. Yes, Junet?
Point, when we are looking at the suitability of a nominee, we also look at his commitment to the work he's going for. So I wanted to ask, your removal from roads transport to Ministry of Sports use, do you see it as a demotion?
Mr. Speaker, first of all, there is a committee of ministries. Mr. Speaker, when I was in roads and transport, I never at any point thought that my colleague in youth and creative economy and sports was a lesser minister than myself. So I don't see any ministry to be different from the other.
Shuria?
Thank you,
One
Honorable
question,
Speaker.
Mishi, one question, Rahab,
Yes.
one question.
Thank you. Let me just add, as everyone was talking about Stadia, Mheshimiwa, we don't have any Stadia in Northeastern Province, 0. So you better add that into your list. There's no sports.
Mishi?
I think we do better than, I haven't even asked my question, sir. My question. That was just a comment.
I told you to stop preambles to questions.
Mr. Speaker, if everybody spoke for their region and I don't say
Go
that,
ahead,
I'll be killed once I leave here.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa Murkomen, youth employment and job creation. Matrix requires concerted efforts, including mainstreaming of the issues in all ministry policies, rather than youth ministry as a standalone solution point. So what is your take and what measures will you champion to achieve this complete mainstreaming in all ministries to push the agenda of youth? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Mishi.
Asante, Mheshimiwa Mwenyekiti. Mheshimiwa Mwenyekiti, nimemsikiza Mheshimiwa Murkomen ambaye pengine anaweza kuwa waziri wa vijana na michezo. Lakini nataka nimregeshe nyuma wakati akiwa waziri wa mambo ya barabara na uchukuzi. Sisi kama watu wa Likoni kupitia bunge niliuliza swala la kivuko cha Mtongwe na tukaweka pesa ambayo ilikuwa ijenge kivuko cha Mtongwe cha feri. Rampu hiyo ilijengwa kidogo tu, yani kama mbeni mfano tu wa kujenga. Baada ya kuweka mamilioni ya pesa. Mpaka leo ferry channel, kwa wale ambao hawajui Kiswahili, Mtongwe ferry channel. Mpaka leo kivuko kile hakifanyi kazi, wakazi wa Mtongwe wanataabika sana kuvuka kwenda katika ngambo ya pili. Vile vile ile floating bridge ambayo ilikuwa pale iliyotengezwa kwa milioni 300 ilikuja ikakatizwa kwa ghafla bila kuita wananchi kuwaeleza kumeenda vipi ama kumekwenda vipi. Sasa mimi nauliza, umezungumza maneno matamu ya kumtoa nyoka pangoni, lakini kusema sio kutenda. Unaweza kusema na ikawa ni mkono mtupu au rambwi. Mimi nataka nimuulize waziri, utatutibishia vipi ya kwamba haya ulioyasema hazitakuwa ahadi za urongo kama zile ulizoahidi kupitia wizara yako kwa watu wa Likoni, na mpaka leo wanalia hakuna floating bridge, iliwekwa wakati wa regime ya nyuma, sasa hakuna tena, kivuko cha Mtongwe hakuna. Mwisho tupe tathmini ya talanta hela. Asante mwenyekiti.
Oka amekatalia pangoni. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Rahab.
Yeah, to the nominee. I don't know whether you are aware that most of the constituencies, we don't have youth officers for the last 5 to 7 years. And I'm sure you need those youth officers because they'll help you to go on the ground and do mapping and know exactly what is happening on the ground. Honorable Speaker, I've also received another question from your friend, Honorable Murkomen. They are asking, if you are confirmed, what are you going to do to gain their confidence, your youth? Thank you.
Nominee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me start with Honorable Shuria. First of all, youth, no, I agree first that there are no studies in the, as I said earlier, in the arid and semi-arid areas. When I was doing the tournament last year, Mr. Speaker, Turkana players were playing on a sand pitch, Mr. Speaker. It's very disheartening to see how marginalization is being perpetuated, and I think we need to correct that, to give facilities to young people in the arid and semi-arid areas. And I have been deliberate, even in the Ministry of Roads, to make sure that arid and semi-arid areas are also taken care of. Mr. Speaker, on the question of youth mainstreaming, I agree with Honorable Shuria also that we shouldn't talk about youth only to be confined to youth department or the youth ministry. It is a mainstreamed issue across the board, and that's why I said earlier that the youth ministry itself should provide oversight whether the other departments of government are achieving the objective of creating employment and creating opportunities for young people to do business and making sure that they have been given access to have a voice. Mr. Speaker, part of those initiatives that were done after post-election violence by the second term of President Kibaki was to have a National Youth Council, which has never been operationalized up to now. I participated in the youth agenda in the whole conversation about how to operationalize the National Youth Council. I want to promise the people of Kenya that we are going to give the young people of Kenya a voice to elect their own leaders from grassroots national level, so that then the objective of National Youth Council is going to be achieved, where they will have their own leaders elected by themselves. Part of the reasons why young people are in the streets protesting is because they feel that they are not being involved in decision making, or they have no voice, they have no channels of releasing that which they would like to give to the country. And I don't want tokenism in this case. They must also be part of the decision making. Mr. Speaker, when I got any opportunity to appoint board members in the previous ministry where I was, Mr. Speaker, without being nostalgic, I made sure that youth were in every agency that I appointed. In fact, in some of them, like the Kenya Railway, there are more than 2. If you go to Kenya Ports Authority, we appointed a 26-year-old board member. And these are big corporations that people think that young people should not be sitting there. I made sure that there was a deliberate effort to mentor. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Murkomen has asked a question: can the youth of Kenya trust me to lead them? They should trust me because of my track record. My track record, Mr. Speaker, in the previous ministry speaks for itself. My track record as a senator speaks for itself. My track record as a mentor. I have mentored people, Mr. Speaker, who have become members of parliament.
That is what you started with.
Leaders and MCAs. But the question was asked that how do they trust me? They should trust me because I have mentored young people until some have accessed higher positions of governance in this country. And if they got a minister that they should be proud of, and they will be seeing it is Kipchumba Murkomen.
If you are confirmed.
Yeah, if I'm confirmed. Mr. Speaker, on the question of Honorable Mishi, ningependa kusema
ajibu Kiswahili kile sanifu watu wangu pia waelewe.
Bwana Speaker, tumetenda
Kiswahili sanifu or the opposite.
Bwana Speaker, tumetenda kazi nyingi sana katika poti ya Mombasa, na nilianzia hapo awali wakati niliposema tumeimarisha biashara katika poti ya Mombasa. Sasa hivi uongozi wa poti ya Mombasa mkurugenzi,
kwa nini hukumaliza kivuko cha Mtongwe?
Ndio nakuja
kwa nini floating bridge ilitolewa?
Ndio ninasema hivyo, Bwana Speaker. Kuimarisha utendakazi katika poti ya Mombasa ilikuwa pamoja na kuondoa ile floating bridge yenye ilikuwa pale, kwa sababu ilikuwa inapoteza masaa 8 ya biashara katika poti ya Mombasa. Ukisikia kwamba biashara kwa poti ya Mombasa imeinuka, ni kwa sababu tulitoa zile vikwazo ambazo zilikuwa zinatufanya tusifikie malengo yetu kama wizara ya uchukuzi. Na kwa hivyo mara nyingine lazima uhakikishe ya kwamba unaangalia faida yenye inatokezea kwa watu wote wa Likoni, sio wachache. Ya pili, Bwana Spika, tumeayo ni Southern Bypass yenye inaweza kufukisha wananchi kupitia Dongo Kundu bila kutumia ile bridge. Ya tatu, Bwana Spika, nilisafiri na Mheshimiwa Rais tukahakikisha kwamba tutaanzisha ile bridge ya Likoni Bridge, mpango kubwa sana ambayo itabadilisha maisha ya watu ya Likoni na Mombasa. Na kwa hivyo Mtongwe Bridge ferry, Bwana Spika, kweli ni kweli kwamba tumeanza kazi, na ninaamini ya kwamba wale wamebaki pale watahakikisha wamemaliza yenye imebaki. Bwana, nakubaliana na Mheshimiwa Mwishi kwamba kusema si kutenda, na ni ukweli kwamba Bwana Spika, nilitenda mengi bila kusema. Ni wazi ya kwamba wewe na naibu spika Mheshimiwa Gladys Sholei mlisema wazi ya kwamba makosa kubwa ya serikali hii ni kwamba hatujatangaza vilivyo yale yote ambayo tumetenda. Kwa hivyo, kwa sababu nimepata nafasi hii, hayo ni baadhi ya mambo ambayo tumetenda katika wizara hiyo. Bwana Spika,
kwanza uvoda mwenyekiti, nataka hapa ieleweke, kwa sababu huu mradi wa floating bridge haukufanyika kitambo, na ukumbuke ulitumia milioni 300. Sasa ukisema muliitoa tu kwa mambo mengine wakati ilipokuwa inatekelezwa, hamkufikiria hizo milioni 300 za Wakenya zimepotea tu kiholela.
Bwana Spika, ni kweli kwamba tumepoteza milioni 300, lakini tumetengeneza bilioni ngapi? Tumeongeza faida ya poti kwa bilioni 10. Ukilinganisha
faida au
mapato tuseme, but it's faida because it's the difference between the 60 billion we raise and the amount that is Mr. Speaker. I didn't want to call it profit, but yes, if you really want to call it profit, it's profit by 10 billion shillings. And so to chase 300 million at the expense of 10 billion, it was a wise decision to make sure that you do away with that floating bridge for the benefit. Mr. Speaker, Mheshimiwa aliuliza talanta hela.
Yes.
Hii ni kusema kwamba tuko tayari kubadilisha talanta yako ikupatie hela, na ni kwa njia nyingi, kwa kuweza kuanzisha katika mashinani yale miradi ambayo yatahakikisha kwamba kuna mchipuko, Bwana Spika, ya michezo hali mbalimbali, pia ya kuhakikisha kwamba tumeleta teknolojia kusaidia kuhakikisha kwamba Wakenya ambao wako na talanta wanaweza kutangaza talanta yao na kuweza kupata hela kwa mifuko yao, Bwana Spika, kulingana na ile bottom up economic transformation agenda ya serikali hii. Bwana Spika, mwisho ningependa kusema yale maswali ya Mheshimiwa Rehab Mukami, that we don't have the youth officers. It is true. As I told you, the youth department has been neglected. And even where we have youth officers, they are not utilized. Because if you have 51 million to run your core projects across the country, it is evident that you are not going to be able to utilize those people. There was a request already that has been made to Treasury to support programs for youth. And also because of this Nyota program that we are going to start, we will need these youth officers in every constituency to be replaced and to be supported to make sure that they can do the work that they need to do. What are you giving to do there? To gain the confidence, Mr. Speaker. There is no other way. There is no other way of gaining confidence except to work.
I've already answered that.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
We're going towards the end. Deputy Speaker.
Honorable Murkomen, I just want some undertaking from you. One is the World Championships, which were held in 2025 in Tokyo, was supposed to actually have been held in Kenya, but we lost the bid because all our stadiums, including Kasarani, did not meet the international standard. Right now, because you're building, the stadiums are being refurbished, assure us that you will ensure that we bid for the 2027, or 2029 or 2032, at least in our lifetime, because it was sad that we actually lost this. Also, and I will volunteer to help you do the bidding documents, because I'm good at that. Number two...
In what capacity? He has not been confirmed.
As a pro bono, if he's confirmed. Pro bono if it's confirmed. Also, one other suggestion, the reason why Nigeria Nollywood is very successful is because they have a law that provides that 70% of their content in their local television stations are local. That's how Nollywood grew. Also, there is a question here by a Gen Z. Let me just look at that question. Okay, here. I have a message here that says, please ask the incoming Waziri, what is his plan on ensuring that there is no gap of miscommunication or disconnect between the government and the youth Gen Z and Gen Alpha? Does he plan to have an advisor who is this age group so that they can advise him? Asante.
Yeah. Yes, Junet?
I wanted to ask one last question. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the nominee. One of the problems this government, we faced this government in the last 1 or 2 months, Mr. Speaker, emanated from what is called opulence, arrogance, show-off, and unfortunately or fortunately, you are put in the center of it. What is your reply to that? Or what do you say about that?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me start by, yes, I agree with Honorable Cholet that, Mr. Speaker, we should be holding world championships. You remember we held the was it under 17 or under 20? Yes. Most of those athletes, yeah, under 20, and we were in Kasarani, and most of those athletes now are at the Olympics. Mr. Speaker, I believe that if we deliver the infrastructure we have talked about to the standard required, we should be able to host it at the next available opportunity. And I want to thank the Honorable Cholet that should I be confirmed, she will also be willing to support Mr. Speaker, and that is patriotism. That's an act of patriotism. And number two is that this law, I know we have a policy in Kenya, I think it was put at the time of Honorable Tuju, if I'm not wrong, that says 60% of the content should be local, but as a policy, as a directive. But I think we need to move it to law. So when we are revising because we have now a draft creative industry bill and policy, I think as we move to that direction, we should include that in the bill. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Cholet also has talked about communication and reaching out to the younger people. I want to confirm that, Mr. Speaker, I will make sure that I work with the young people, and I will, resources permitting, and it's my wish that I get somebody to work with me who is at the age of what is now called Gen Z or Gen Alpha. That group, Mr. Speaker, who are in their 20s to 30s, Mr. Speaker, I would like to have one of them work in my office, but also I'd like to make sure that the internship programs that we also have in the government, some of those who will intern within the ministry to intern in my office, so that they can also help me build my capacity among young people, so that I continue benefiting from the benefits working of these young people. By the way, I want to assure our young people that they should not fear anything about. I am very enthusiastic about sports and youth, and that, Mr. Speaker, is important to make that assurance. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Junet has asked a very pertinent question. I'm very happy to have this opportunity to say this. Mr. Speaker, I am not arrogant. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I am as gentle as a dove. For those who know me, who are my friends, they know that I cannot hurt a fly. Mr. Speaker, I have many friends in this parliament. They know me. And I have many friends who I've worked with. The problem with public service, and particularly if you have been a politician, you are always around here confronting challenges. And sometimes when you speak in a particular manner, it's concluded that that person is arrogant. Mr. Speaker, I am not. And as a Christian, I should not be containing arrogance. Number two, Mr. Speaker, on the question of opulence, Mr. Speaker, I must say this with utmost respect. I do not know even what opulence means, Mr. Speaker. And let me say this. I take it to mean that people who are opulent are the ones that bask in wealth and modern things. You will see them exposing where they are with their families, where they live, showing which car they drive and all that. Mr. Speaker, I just became a victim, unfortunately, of a crossfire of a conversation. On things, Mr. Speaker, I did not go anywhere to announce to somebody that I wear this, I do that. It's just that some pictures take something you wear and this, that, Mr. Speaker. Ultimately...
And you spoke carelessly somewhere.
Ultimately, Mr. Speaker...
In some radio show.
It wasn't careless, Mr. Speaker. Ultimately, yes. I was asked in a radio show a direct question. What is the most expensive shoe, tie, watch you have ever worn? Mr. Speaker, I had two